Tipp today in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Good morning, welcome along to Tipp Today, 1800 938 007. That's our free phone number if you want to give us a call, and Leanne is producing. Coming up on the show, we'll be hearing from Johnny Luby in just a few moments' time. We continue the conversation that Thurles has not fully benefited from its status as the town where the GAA was founded. A young Clonmel Community Activist is very concerned about the drug problem in Clonmel. Father Iggy O'Donovan on the Ashes Gate controversy. Deputy Michael Lowry on Dean Maxwell in Nenagh Hospital, and the latest on the Garda College. And, of course, the Friday panel will unpack the hot topics of the week. All of that and more on the way. You can text and WhatsApp 083 311 3311. You can email tiptoday@tippfm.com. Let's have a look at the front pages of some of your newspapers today. To the Irish Independent, first of all, and their lead story. The Football Association of Ireland has bowed to pressure to introduce tougher security measures, such as sniffer dogs and CCTV at League of Ireland games, after the Sports Minister threatened to pull funding for new Astro pitches. Now, last night, the FAI fined Drogheda United €15,000 after a child suffered facial injuries, and a new €500,000 euro pitch was badly damaged by fireworks smuggled into Oriel Park in Dundalk. Let's have a look at the Irish Times, and it's dominated by a picture of a very grumpy Hillary Clinton. And she said, "I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein." Hillary Clinton at the closed door deposition there in front of the House Committee, and that's all over the newspapers today. The Irish Times also telling us that the Lewis operator Transdev has lost out on the €1.75 billion contract after 22 years of running the service, branding it's very disappointing news to its staff. Also on the Times today, we're reading that almost €1 million will be spent on a new secure meeting room in government buildings to guard against surveillance of conversations with other world leaders. And the Taoiseach Micheál Martin confirmed that just under €1 million increase in premises expenses at his department this year will go towards a new secure room, because surveillance is everywhere, says the Taoiseach. The Irish Daily Mail, and the lead story on the Mail today: English language schools will be forced to report students who do not attend classes to immigration officials as part of a crackdown on backdoor entries into the workforce. And finally, a look at the Irish Examiner, and the lead story on the Examiner today, and very worrying news indeed. There are not enough special school places planned to meet the substantially increased needs for this September in what is becoming what is being described indeed as the next looming crisis in education. And that's just as fallout from the special needs assistant controversy continued this week. The Dáil hearing that fears that hundreds of students may be denied an appropriate school place for the up-and-coming school year. And also reading another worrying story indeed. Households felt the full force of the withdrawal of the government energy credits and the price hikes heading into Christmas. New figures showing that there's a surge in those who are way behind on their electricity bills from last December. So that's a look at what's making headlines today. Do you want to comment on that? If you do, 083 311 3311. Johnny Luby is with us. Good morning, Johnny.
Good morning, friend. By God, you went through the papers there, nothing but doom and gloom,
and no happy story that I could find there at all for you, Johnny. And I wouldn't mind, like, you're in bad shape after last night, so you need a couple of happy stories today, don't you?
Oh, by God, yeah, we had a rough, brilliant night above in that lovely neck of the woods called the Norbrook Lounge. there in Clonakilty, from a huge crowd turned up, but I'll talk about that later. Hey, it was an absolutely fantastic night.
Brilliant, deal. We're looking forward to hearing more on that. And of course, you had a smashing day at Skullcormac in Cashel yesterday as well, Johnny.
That's right, Jeff, and a wonderful day there yesterday, and thanks to Tipp FM and Stevie Gleeson and, of course, the Tipperary staff for the publicity. It's very, very important, and Cashel RSC for giving their wonderful facilities there 2 or 3 times during the year to Skullcormac. It's really appreciated. And just like everything else, friend, 180,000 was the final figure.
Amazing, wasn't it? Absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, Martin Brown texted me this morning. He says Irish people, they mightn't be agreeing or disagreeing and the whole lot, but when they're asked to rally to a cause, he said it is absolutely fantastic. They were thrilled, friend, and to see the delight on the youngsters' faces. I mean, there was 3 or 4 youngsters there that watched their buddies going off on the school on the bus, on their own buses and that, and they weren't able to go because they're in wheelchairs and that. So it was one of the first things that they did buy was a new bus, and they brought him out to the horse and jockey. And the very same, Miss Lowry said, she's the principal there, as they go, as you're telling them that they were going to Lapland. They were thrilled, Fran, and look, that's what it's all about. And a sincere thanks to everybody, and that. And Fran, I don't know many times Tipp FM were thanked because you give the airways,
Well, it's you pushing it all when you come on, Johnny. That's been working very well over the years. Yeah,
they said to me, well, will he mind? I said, will he mind? I said, I'll have it in, out, said and gone before.
Well, we never mind supporting Skullcormac or Skullingus and those wonderful establishments.
I met a grand lady there yesterday. Siobhan O'Brien is one of the girls there on the committee and working in the school there. But I met her mum from the Silver Mine. She says, you have to call in any time for tea. When you're in the Silver Mine.
Sounds fantastic. Well, you never know when I'll knock on the door. Johnny, you're married 46 years tomorrow. Is Catherine getting any kind of award for that?
No, but I'll tell you one thing, friend, now, while I was waiting for you. It is 16,801 days. It includes the 11 leap years. It is 403,224 hours. I got a bowl of bus last night in the Norbrook Lounge.
Yeah.
And I think Catherine saw it and some kind of, she said, what about me? Well, I said it was me that they were congratulating for just hanging in there. But I was telling them about John B. Keane. He said about marriage, he said, it is an ongoing war between 2 people. He said, with occasional outbursts of peace.
It's a lovely way. It's a lovely way to do. What are you going to do for the anniversary? Will you buy another candle just like?
Oh no, I won't. I was just looking into daffodils now. They're up, and
in somebody's garden, is it?
Yeah, Catherine goes to Wexford tomorrow, and I go to the dogs.
Stop.
So, I'm telling you, hey, the secret of a good marriage is don't be around if there is a row breaking out.
I'm not sure what book you saw that in, Johnny, but I'd question it.
Oh, Christ, Brian White is tough going, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, anyway. So Catherine says, anyway. Talk to us a bit about sport. I suppose Tipperary being beaten by Limerick, that was disappointing, wasn't it?
I see some of the papers are not elated, but look, it is what it is. Limerick were up to championship pace, Tipperary were at league pace, and as a result of that, Limerick looked awesome, but look, Tipperary will be there when the championship comes around.
But did you notice, Johnny, that already then the hurlers on the ditch were out and condemning Tipperary? These are Tipperary people condemning the team.
I certainly wouldn't. Look, if you put yourself in Liam Call's position, he has maybe 35 or 6 lads in training, and he has to give them games to see what he has, what material he has to bring on at the start, or whatever the case may be. They're probably in the middle of a hard training, and they're not going to disrupt anything, whether it is league or challenge games or whatever else.
Yeah.
They're still going to continue their training. Look, hey, I prefer to see him being beaten in February than being beaten in May or June or whenever we play the championship. I think it's on maybe the middle of April. And Cork and Limerick are the 2 form teams. Look, Tipperary won't be 100 mile away either when they get into their physical shape and the ground is dry, and that because Tipperary's first touch is absolutely brilliant no matter what 20 players he has on the team on the day, and that they're a sight to behold. And the biggest problem, even if they won on Saturday last weekend, the biggest problem is the same as the other 4 counties that are there: Clare, Waterford, Cork and Limerick. The biggest aim is to be in the top 3. And the other counties are the same way. You could have Tipp and Cork gone out the thing, and you'd have Clare, Waterford and Limerick representing Munster.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very hard, and look, Liam Kiley and them and Ben O'Connor and them, they know well that every game out there is going to be hard to win in the championship.
Yeah, but we need to support. The players.
Oh yeah, friend, they certainly do. And there was fine support in Temple Stadium or even on a rather bad evening weather-wise. And then, of course, they went across to the Dogs. They had a huge night at the Dogs there for the Tipperary Supporters Club night. Massive crowd. And I want to congratulate Liam Cahill's daughter on training her first winner. She's now a greyhound trainer, friend. So when you get your first greyhound, send him straight down to Liam Cahill's daughter there in Ballingarry.
Yeah, should I buy a greyhound with you? Do you think will we partner?
No, my name wouldn't be great in the greyhound game. There was always a question about me, but anyway.
Indeed, and Tipperary Camogie as well, of course, beaten by Kilkenny.
For Tipperary Camogie, by Kilkenny, but look, they had a different kind of a panel out again. James Heffernan, the in charge of those, has to have a look at other girls there, and look, they put up a good old performance. They were beaten by 5 or 6 points by a rather strong Kilkenny team, and I think they're out again very shortly in the Camogie, but they have to have a look at the players on the panels and give them all games. I'd like to say have a look to the Silvermines, B team, who are beaten in the All-Ireland semi-final. They put up a bloody good show. They're only beaten a point or so, and fair play to them. Hurling is strong in Tipperary. Yeah. And the footballers drew with Longford. Look, a draw is a draw. You'll take it to the point, and but they have to win their next few games. They're playing Leitrim this weekend, so the best of luck to them.
We have to mention the rugby as a happy point, I suppose. Beating England in Twickenham, was it? It was
That's
magnificent,
right,
wasn't it?
It was absolutely massive, and the under-20s had set the ball rolling by winning on Friday night in a tremendous game of rugby. That John Kearney, who's associated with, I don't know, they says North Tipperary, maybe the borders of Offaly, but anyway, his Cashel Rugby Club for the club playing, and a fantastic player. Well done to him, and but as regards Ireland v England, Fran, I didn't hear too much of the Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. and
Good.
The fields of Athenry was sung with gusto. I know I have a couple of English lads listening this morning, Chris Tilley and those lads. Yeah. We couldn't bait you enough. It's as simple as that. But anyway, fine. When they play England, I've no doubt inside in the dressing room, lads, remember the Battle of Clontarf, remember 1916, remember this and remember that. But anyway, look, listen, hey, the fantastic guys to go out and beat England, who have very strong Premier clubs rugby in England. But nevertheless, when call them the Paddies came together, by God, they gave it a right rattle. It was unbelievable.
For sure. What's the story with Rockwell, Johnny?
Yeah, Rockwell advanced in the Junior Cup. I think they're in the semi-final. Fair play to them. And, of course, Nenagh, first team, aren't having the best of seasons. It is tough going up there. But their seconds win the Munster League against Garryowen, and congratulations to them. Kilfeacle played Thurles. Kilfeacle have the league won, but they played Thurles in the Garryowen Cup, and an outstanding league match that was there from earlier on. And Kilfeacle emerged victorious. So well done to all concerned. And just to say that the Osline are playing today, although they were beaten last weekend in the All-Ireland Camogie final. Today they play the All-Ireland Junior final, so the very best of luck to them as well, and best wishes to Joe Ryan, who is going for president of the GA. Yeah. Hopefully he'll get there, but they tell me he's there or thereabouts. But I suppose lots of things change going into the polling vote.
Wouldn't it be fantastic? Wouldn't it be fantastic if he won? Wouldn't it be great for the country and all of that? Yeah.
It would be brilliant for the brilliant for myself because I know him well, and I've no doubt I could be sitting beside him above in Crow Park, giving him a small bit of advice.
I can imagine. Was there horse racing yesterday in Clonmel? Was that yesterday?
That's right, yeah, friend. Fair play to them. They got through yesterday with a local winner there from Templemore, John Ryan, who's a top-class guy in the horse game, and a fine crowd there, and they got through the cart, which was the big thing. And, of course, Thurles on Thursday next had their final meeting, so the very best of luck to them. It's fantastic to see Thurles up and running again.
Yes, and the raceway in Rose Green, you better give that a mention. That's this coming Sunday, isn't it?
That's right, Jeff, and this coming Sunday they start at 12:30, and that they've all the usual there. It's €15 to get in, but it's a wonderful way of putting down an old day, and there mightn't be an awful lot else on. You could do worse than built onto the raceway in Rose Green. Friend, I want to say thanks to the man from Upper Church Dunbayne. He left 2 pints for me with all my publicity for that wonderful club, Upper Church Dunbayne. He left 2 pints for me in Thurles. One was a pint of 0-0, and the other was a pint, a good pint. Until the one night I had a bloody driver. So anyway, what difference would that make?
Very good, yeah. What else did I want to say? Oh, yeah, Golden Kilfeacle, you'll all be crowing in Care House and
they will, yeah,
bringing all the silverware.
Yeah, but they have to bring on security because there's 10 cops coming in the back of Shawnee Halliburton's van, so there'll be a huge crowd in Care House tomorrow night.
Well, that's tomorrow night, Johnny, is it?
Tomorrow night, yeah. The very best of luck to them, friend. Another thing I want to say is there was a man in at the ballroom in Cashel last Saturday night.
The great John Harney was there. I heard he was there, but I didn't meet him at all.
Yeah, well, he said he said he's a wonderful singer.
He is.
I think he said he's actually better to sing than he is. He said on the Tipp FM, he said, and he's quite good at that. But he said one song he went out dancing to was, "Are you going out the same way you came in?"
Very good. Well, we were delighted to know he was there, but sadly I didn't get to have a word with him at all. Lovely that he attended. Yeah, brilliant.
But he really enjoyed the night. And friend, I want to say hello to Lowry O'Keefe and his staff. I met him there yesterday as well at the furniture there in Clonmel. And I have a thing down here. Where are you playing the music this weekend?
We're doing our spring night out, would you believe, down in where is it? Down in Ennis, in the West County in Ennis. So that's tomorrow night and Sunday as well. Whole bunch of people coming from all over the country to it. So we're looking forward.
Right, God.
So you won't come down, will you? And sort of.
I won't be far away. I'll be in Limerick. I'll see will I run out.
Come out. You'd be made fierce welcome.
I'll go out the same as I came in. I want to that young Keane Collins down in Cloheen that goes for dialysis 3 times a week to Dublin. Tomorrow they have a motorbike run for him from Clarehan.
Oh, brilliant.
Friend, imagine the motorbikes are going to go up and down to Dublin 3 times in the one day.
Wow.
Because young Collins does it 3 times in the week.
So he's doing it as a fundraiser, Johnny, obviously.
As a fundraiser, yeah. They have sponsorship cards in John Harney's and also in the central shop there in Clarehan. And for many, the lads, they'll tell you how you can donate €1 or €2, whatever the case may be. But people wonder, I find it hard to go up to Dublin once a year for the All Ireland.
I know, yeah.
But they're God above tonight to go 3 times in the unless you want a spin on the back of a motorbike to go up and down 3 times in the. But the Norbrook Lounge, friend, I better come back to that. A wonderful night Cheltenham preview to in aid of the Liam Brereton Fund, the Injured Jockeys Fund, and North Tipp Hospice. We had a wonderful panel there. We had a couple of top class jockeys in there. Ken Whelan, a great jockey in the day, and we had Sean Flanagan, top class pilot. He's riding in Cheltenham this year, and so there was tips flying all over the place. And like everything else, we met Simon Ryan and from Clonmel and John Ryan from Knockavilla and John Ryan the trainer and Albert. What do you call Albert's second name from Nenagh? He'd be on the Christmas run.
Oh yeah, Albert, of course. You see, you hit me very hard now and I got sleep last night, so I'm a bit dopey. Go on, you met Albert anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. I find out about he said, do you know the way you'll be caught there? And then he says, you can't remember where you met me before. And I said, God, a buff tonight. I said, you're Nenagh Rugby Club. He said, was one time.
Yes.
Oh, I said, you're the Christmas lights man. So he said, yeah. So I knew I couldn't think of his bloody second name. And, friend, there's another thing that now, a of course, the Minister for Education, says the government was not kicking the can down the road as regards funding for the SNA. Of course she was kicking it, and she was kicking it with her 2 feet, and she put her 2 feet rightly in it.
But how did they mess that up so badly in terms of, like, you know?
Friend, I honestly don't know, and I think it's an absolute scandal to be paying each one of the ministers have 14 and 15 advisors that are on anything from 100 grand up to 180 or 200 grand, that they couldn't say, let's take a pull here.
Dreadful. Albert Purcell, by the way. Albert Purcell, by the way, of course.
Yes. Thanks, Fred.
Yeah, sorry to Albert. I know him for 100 years, but there you go. Yeah.
But, Fred, it is an absolute scandal that they let this come into the limelight, and now it is fully on the papers and everything else. And when one was in Cashel yesterday, to think that Cashel had to fund the thing themselves and the people of the surrounding areas and indeed beyond the borders of the county, the way they all came together to raise 180 grand. And here, Mr. The Taoiseach is putting in a soundproof meeting room, costing $1 million.
Yes. Yeah, so he can talk to the world leaders and the European leaders during the presidency.
I won't get a chance to cock my ears. Listen to
you won't be able to listen. And we're reading today as well that there's not enough special school places planned for September to meet, substantially increased needs, Johnny.
Fine. There is certainly not, and I have that from the horses now. The amount of people that's on waiting lists to, first of all, with autism and get it verified and all of that, and then on top of that, to try and get into those wonderful schools where the staff, friend, I see them yesterday, they're absolutely magnificent.
Amazing people,
You couldn't praise them enough. But finally, friend, what let's see now is this is the Borlahan Dwell at GA draw. That's on the 17th of March, friend. You're going to get your ticket for that very shortly. Now, you read out there after on the news, the minister is going to, you're allowed pets.
Yes.
To bring pets on trains and buses. Years and years ago, friend, when the Princess bus was going from Cashel to Tipperary town,
yes,
a man here in Golden had a puck goat. And he wanted to bring him on the bus because he had to meet his future to have kids. In the goat's kids, he had to meet the opposition beyond in the junction.
All right, to mate. Right, very good.
To mate. That's the exact word.
Yeah.
To mate. And he brought the puck goat on the Princess bus. And my father-in-law was on the bus as well, and he often described like the puck goat was sitting up front behind the bus driver. He couldn't believe it. And your man said to him, he said, look, he'll have the job done. He said, because this fella's fairly good in action. He said, he'll have it done in about 20 minutes. He says, what time is the bus coming back at? He hopped on the bus, friend, and left the puck goat up in Thomastown again. Wasn't they wonderful times?
Absolutely brilliant. And was he secured properly in his seat, though, you see?
At that time, though, friend, there was no health and safety on. Your man held him by the bloody arm.
That's brilliant, isn't it? Yeah. Somebody wondering, would you give a mention to Carl Hennessy in Ardfinnan? He's organising a 5K for this coming Sunday, the 1st of March, in Ardfinnan, and it's starting at the GAA pitch there. He's raising money for the Ardfinnan Quid Games, which is an effort to raise funds for the new facilities there in Ardfinnan. And Carl is a grandson to Michael and Breda Hennessy, great friends of mine from Tipp Midwest all those years
my
ago.
God.
So that's
when my missus has gone out the door and still out the gate on the car, and I know she has the radio on now, and Sterling Moss wouldn't come around the bend the way she came around. I hope she's not leaving me after 46 years.
I could understand if she did. And at speed as well. Hello, Catherine, and mind yourself in the car there. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Friend, that's it. Now, look, thanks for everyone, friend, and look, it's like everything else. We have to try and keep the show on the road, isn't that it?
Absolutely.
And to the wonderful listeners out there, friend, Mother of God above, I must have got my photo taken last night. I thought I was going to the part this world, obituary columns and every bloody thing else.
You see, I told you I'd make a star of you, Johnny. I told you that. I told you that.
Hey, I'll tell you one thing, that Bridget in the Norbrook Lounge,
Yes.
some lady from with the food she served up and the way she was able to go around, and they had plenty of staff on and all of that. And I'd say with an auctioneer from Rossgrey, he was top class. We sold the Clonmel jersey, and we sold a prints of this, that and the other thing. What else did we sell? A whitehead bull calf,
One of them fellas, yeah.
Yeah, a whitehead heifer calf. I think it made 700 and only about 3 weeks old.
Wow. Is that good? You see, I wouldn't know. I'm a townie, John.
Yeah, it is top class, but I'll say what I see about it is everybody seems to have money except me.
Well, that's because you spend it all on drink and candles for Catherine.
Anyway, hey, listen, thanks to everybody, lads, for listening in, and look.
All right, look after yourself, Johnny. Be good now.
Right, fine, thanks.
Bye. That's the wonderful Johnny Luby. The worse for wear this morning on the Fourpenny Road there, and Catherine leaving him, heading out the gate in the car. I can't blame her. We're back in just a few moments.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, hook on. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, hook on. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Yeah, Jamie was on to say, good morning, Fran. You were playing well in Bulgaton Castle on Wednesday night for Dermot Lyons. Well, we were delighted to be there, Jamie, and Dermot, a great old friend of mine, young man indeed with rather profound health issues, but he still was there along with his family, so that all of his friends could turn up and wish him well on Wednesday night. About 20 different artists and bands there on the night, and well over 500 people there, and well done to Eileen O'Brien, who organised it brilliantly, and Declan Ainger there as compere on the night, and Peter Burke, who was a tremendous help indeed to myself and Muriel on the night as well. So well done to everybody involved. But Peggy Murray put up a piece of video of Dermot and his family at the end of the night, where his friends and musicians and dancers gathered around them on the dance floor. It's just heartbreaking to see, but a beautiful piece of video. Anyway, Jamie went on to tell me that Glenn Flynn, a great old friend of mine, is playing in Laura tonight with Sean and Barrow up there and all the gang, and I believe Dermot and Irene Ring playing tomorrow night in Duncarn. So fair play to everybody there, and thanks for the info, Jamie. I'm not sure who's in Cashel tonight. If you want to tell me, I'd be happy to announce that as well. Earlier on this week, Councillor Jim Ryan joined us on the show to discuss his view that Thurles has not fully benefited from its status as the town where the GAA was founded. John Worth, chairman and founder of Thurles Memorial Committee, was in touch, and he joins me now. Good morning to you, John.
Good morning, Fran, and good morning to all your listeners out there.
And lovely to talk to you again, John. Thanks for coming on with us. What do you make of what Jim was saying? Do you go along with it, that maybe Thurles hasn't benefited completely from being the birthplace of the GAA, John?
Well, Fran, I'll tell you, my experience, I've been listening to that for the last, I think, 40 years.
Yeah.
Our committee, Thurles ALM Memorial Committee, was first of all the Thurles Tidy Towns Committee. When it broke up, then it became Thurles ALM Memorial Committee. And we've been promoting Thurles for many, many years in relation to not alone Simple Stadium, but St. Mary's Garden of Remembrance. You have the cathedral there as well. You have the wetlands. There's a lot of history in Thurles itself. The book there done some years ago by Jack Hendy, The Chronology of Thurles, which was fantastic, from 580 up to 1978. And then I wrote a book then a few years back, The Historical Walk of Thurles, that is steeped in history again. And there's a lot that could be done. Now, I did talk to them, the members of the county board and members of the county council over the years, and I put it to them that the Lorna Pork should be actually in Simple Stadium itself, because
this is the GAA Museum, John, isn't it?
That's correct. That's correct. Yes, and it would make more sense that you could have. There's a lot of kids that come there. Busloads will come, tours and all that will come. They could go into the museum. They could go in and see the park then, and they could enjoy themselves. Yeah. But as it is, the stadium itself, it just stands there. they're a bit slow to do anything when it comes to that, because I remember myself going back over 25 years fighting to get the back of the old stand there in Childers Park cleaned up. Eventually it was done. And it was an eyesore for years. They're a bit slow that way because, the potential that's there for that is unreal. Now, I had Down District Council down a couple of years back, and they were very impressed with the whole thing. And they more or less said the same thing, that why it wasn't developed more for the general public.
And did you get answers on that from the GAA, John?
No. They said they'd look into it, and the potential was there for it. Now, Martin Semple was the great Tom Semple's son. He's a member of our committee as well. Yeah. And Martin lives in Denver, in Colorado. Now, I would have known all these people and the potential that's there for it, but seemingly they don't want to see it. Now, as I said, Thurles is a hive of information when it comes to history. I remember a couple of years back, we had the Lord Mayor of Kilkenny come, and she was very impressed with all the historical plaques that were around the town. She was in St. Mary's on that particular morning. They were planting a tree to one of the Irish soldiers that died in the Lebanon. And she said to me, excuse me, she said, John, she says, I admire these plaques you have around the town, and the town is steeped in history, but she says you haven't got the tourists. Now, the reason we haven't got the tourists is because the research hasn't gone into it, the interest hasn't gone into it, and it's always someone will bring it up at some stage. Oh, sure, why can't we do something here? But now is the time to do it.
And why, you see, I can't get my head around it, John. Why wouldn't they want to do that?
I don't know because, I don't live too far from the stadium. I love the town itself. I love the area, the people. And I have great pride in the town itself and the people. And I can't understand it where they come, as you say, you go to Cork there, you go to Limerick now, I believe they're opening a museum in Limerick. And you can go up to Croke Park there. But then you come to Thurles there and you have to go down Cleveland Road to the old bank. Whereas I think it's out of the way. I know some people say the shop was gone as well, but you could facilitate that shop up there as well, and you could have a hub where it is. You could have a second shop, but would you have your shop also up where the museum is? And not alone that, would say, when I talk about St. Mary's Garden of Remembrance, the great Tom Semple is buried there. Now, there's a beautiful memorial up there to his memory as well. And believe it or not, on the day that Cork will be playing in Thurles, the amount of Cork people that will go up to see his grave, and you could have the link is there, and he lived in Cleveland Road there, and the historical walk at Thurles could be revived. It needs to be updated. Now, I did talk to Thurles Tourism about it. They were very interested in it. I have all the information for it, all the picture work for it, but no one has got back to me on that either. I've been on to Tipperary Tourism about it. And as I said, our committee has worked very, very hard over the years to promote that. Now, I will say, Jim is also a member of our committee. And, it's just not about Semple Stadium. You have the cathedral there, a beautiful cathedral. We have so much history. Yes. As the Lord Mayor of Kilkenny pointed out to me, you're steeped in history.
Well, that's for certain. Is Jim the only councillor on your committee, John?
No, he is. One time, the book that I actually put together at that time, The Historical Walk at Thurles, that was edited by Councillor Noel Dwyer, Noel.
Yeah, of course,
and my daughter, Nadine Wirth. So David Dorn was on it at the time. Now, I've invited many councillors to come on board, but they don't seem to be interested. But that alone, that we do have a lot of, we say, distinguished visitors to St. Mary's. We had there lately, we had the Republic of Korea ministers come over. There was 7 or 8 of them in it, and there was other, but none of them took the time to come and meet these people.
None of the public representatives?
No, not one of them came. You had distinguished ministers from the Republic of Korea there. Their first mission, believe it or not, when they landed in Dublin, was to come to Thurles. Wow. And their second mission was to meet the Dáil representatives the following day. And not one of them turned up.
That's fairly incredible, I'm sure you.
Of course, it's incredible. Now, not alone that, it's on the cards at the moment that Thurles can be twinned with the town or a village or a city in the Republic of Korea. All the paperwork was done for that up in Dublin. I brought it to the various councillors to go ahead and do it. I spoke with the administrator there some time ago. She was all for it, and she said it's up to the county councillors to actually put it forward. And I've said it to them on many occasions that it can be done. And not alone that, I remember going back another few years, I always remember the first ambassador to the Republic of Korea came to Thurles, Hae-young Park. And he was very interested in education and what was going on in Thurles in relation to education. And his first port of call when he came was to the Order of Malta Hall, they were only after opening. And then we went to Mary I, which is St. Patrick's College it was. Yeah. And then we went to LIT, and the day we went to LIT it was absolutely fantastic. The All-Ireland competitions were on, there were students there from all over Ireland. And he went around and he had a chat with all those people. And the main aim of his visit that time was student exchange. Now, we had our history done on the research. All the students that would go from the Republic of Korea, that would be third-level students, would prefer, 80% would prefer to come to Ireland. That wasn't even taken up. And people came back to me afterwards, we were slow there. But you can be slow, but you need to get off your knees and see what's out there. Well, you do,
because,
there.
I mean, politicians and councillors, they come on the programme all the time. They talk about, needing footfall in the centre of Thurles and all of this kind of thing. But your tourism would drive that, wouldn't it?
Oh, gosh, unreal. And at the moment, I can assure you, the Republic of Korea, in the embassy in Dublin, is one of our sponsors. Dr. Martin Semple in Denver is another one of our sponsors. I was talking to the Republic of Kuwait ambassador there only last week, and he's very much interested in coming on board. And I was also talking to the United Arab Emirates ambassador, and there's a possibility he may come on board. That's the interest they have shown in St. Mary's itself for what it is, the Garden of Remembrance. And you could extend from that. There's a big extension there just to be used. And the town would flourish from the tourism itself, either in relation to jobs and everything else, the hoteliers, everybody would clean up on it.
Yeah. What do you think, John? I mean, do you think that at least having this conversation might drive this on in some way, or have you seen it all before and it comes to nothing?
I've seen it all before, and I've seen it when they come to St. Mary's. They'll do this and they'll do that on the day they take the photographs. They're gone and good luck. And as I said, when you see foreign countries taking an interest in your town, that's fantastic. But when you see your own people, we say, just lagging behind, I can't get there. Sometimes one will turn up, sometimes two will turn up. And it's crazy. And it can be a bit embarrassing at times because, but we've gone past the embarrassing stages now at this time because, they're the people that should be embarrassed. Right. They're supposed to be representing our town.
But John, you're on Tipp FM now. Make the call. What do you say publicly? What have you to say to them?
I would actually say get off of their knees and do. We've been asking them for so long. Tourism is a big thing. It's a big thing, and it's going to get bigger. The potential is there to develop Thurles in tourism. And as I said, and you have the wetlands there, you have the cathedral there, you have everything there. And as I said, all they have to do, a little bit of common sense, is first of all, have a look at the chronology of tourism 580 up to 1978, and then have a look at the historical walk of Thurles. Now, the historical walk of Thurles, believe it or not, when that came out first, we had a man on board, Harry Summers, the late Harry Summers. Harry was fantastic. He was in contact with people all over the world. And the first 6 copies of the historical walk of Thurles went to Moscow.
Wow.
Now, there's something else. Now, it's a beautiful little book. It needs to be upgraded now because we have 15 large memorials in St. Mary's, and there's 54 plaques. There's 2 field guns there. The guns that are there at the moment, there's a French cannon. There's only 2 of them left in the world. The other one is in the museum in Paris.
But sure, it's incredible, and everybody should know about it. I have to leave it there, John, but we'll certainly get back to this, and we'll certainly follow it up, John. But we wish you well, and thank you so much for coming on with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning to you. John Worth there of the Thurles Memorial Committee. Back in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1800 938 007.
Jerry Dunn was on to us, quite a number of people on to us, in fact, to congratulate the girls from Greenhill, Carrick-on-Shore on winning the All-Ireland B Camogie. So fair play, many, many congratulations indeed to everybody involved in the team there. Now, 17-year-old community activist Joe Hawkins contacted the show this week to express his concern and dismay, indeed, over the open drug use in Clonmel. And he joins me now. Good morning to you, Joe.
Good morning, Fran, and good morning to all your listeners across Tipperary and specifically in Clonmel this morning. And I'm delighted to be on talking to yourself.
Well, it's always a pleasure, Joe. You said the rise of the demand for drugs in Clonmel, allowing for supply to be stable and thriving for small cohorts of people in the community. How bad is it, Joe?
Look, Fran, sure, I do be in the town centre every day. I live in Clonmel, and as you said, the rise and the demand for drugs at the moment is just unthinkable. And we see young people that are being targeted every day by small cohorts of people in the community. And I'm not going to mention anyone here today, but everybody knows the people in the communities that are doing this evil, disgusting, despicable thing, dealing drugs to young people. And I'm a young person, and I definitely wouldn't ever think about touching drugs, but some people just get sucked into that narrative that drugs are a good thing.
And can I press you on that, Joe? I mean, I know, don't name names to me, but you're saying to me that everybody knows who these people are. Is that what you're saying to me?
Yes, Fran. Look, sure, the cats on the street know who these people are, but unfortunately, and a little mission of mine to do is to go down into the courtroom on the Tuesday morning and see the amount of people that are actually being prosecuted for the crime that they're committing. But see, I think we're very weak in this country on how we approach the issue of drugs. If someone is pulled by a member of An Garda Síochána on the street with possession of drugs, more than likely they will not do time in jail. It'll just be seized off them and they can't be arrested. But then if someone's pulled over in a car and they have an amount of drugs that they might be dealing, then that's a different story. But there's just the number of people that are not being prosecuted through the court system is worrying for me. And like as I said, the demand for drugs is so high, and that's leaving people vulnerable, and it's also allowing a stable, thriving drug. What would you call it?
Supply.
Yes. A drug supply in the town. And so now there's a difference here for people on this morning that might ever had an issue with drugs. Them people have an addiction, and there's a total difference between the poor young fella out in the street that has an addiction and cannot get off drugs. That's a total different than someone going out on a Saturday night having cocaine or weed or whatever, and they're conscious of what they're doing. And what I really feel sorry for is the publican that actually has no right to make some kind of suggestion that person's doing drugs in their premises, and they couldn't conclude or allude to something like that, because they could come up under serious charges for whatever you call it, defamation or they're vulnerable.
You're questioning the methadone clinic and the impact on the town. Will you just tease that out for me, Joe? What are you saying there?
Yeah, so it came aware to me that there's a methadone clinic in Clonmel. There's two actually, one in the old mental health unit in St. Michael's, and a pharmacy in the town. I won't name the pharmacy, but I think that it's unfortunate that there's a methadone clinic, and we have people coming from all across Munster to use this methadone clinic, and we're condensing the problem into one locality in Clonmel. Now, people need that service, and it's a vital service.
Yeah.
But we can't packed everybody into one town and expect the problem to alleviate itself. And I just like to say, friend, with the methadone clinic itself, and also the 9-to-9 accommodation. I believe that these two services are hopping off each other. We're condensing the issue to one locality of Clonmel. This has to be tackled across every community and not condensed into the Clonmel community. We people now, there's some people, I spoke to several people living in the 9-to-9 housing accommodation, and they said that there's people coming in there, they don't know them. They're coming from Cork, Limerick, Kilkenny, and they're using the methadone clinics, and then they're meeting other people with needs, and they're going on to hardline drugs.
Right, but Joe, if people are choosing to come and benefit from the methadone, does it not mean that, that they intend trying to get off drugs in some way? Because that's why you would use methadone. So is that not a good thing? Is that...
No, sorry. As I said, I do think that the methadone clinics serve a very wealthy purpose, but we cannot condense the problem to Clonmel. We're a small town, and we have a very major issue with drugs, and we can't help everybody else. I think that there should be a methadone clinic in every town, and then you're spreading the you're spreading the radius for where people can be treated.
And what about the 9-to-9? I mean, I understood. I mean, last July, it was announced that there was going to be day services within that 9-to-9 home as well. In other words, that people wouldn't be turfed out onto the street at 9 o'clock. Has that not happened, Joe?
Well, I'm aware that there's two support workers that will go in at 9 o'clock in the evening, and they will support people in there till 9 o'clock the next morning, and then those people will have to go out on the street till 9 o'clock the next evening. Now, there's been no support as of yet, and I'm not too sure. Did one councillor comment last week about support being available for the 9-to-9?
Yeah, because I know that it was announced on this programme last summer that funding was being made available for that, but you're saying to me that hasn't happened.
Definitely that hasn't happened yet and hasn't been enrolled yet. Now, it is unfortunate, because it would probably alleviate people being on the street all day, and it gives these people something to do, and a lot of these people that are availing of the methadone clinic and staying the 9-to-9, they should have support services all through the day, and there should be better services there to help these people get off whatever.
Well, that would be ideal. Were you going to? Leanne was telling me you want to talk to us about the tactics used by drug dealers in the community, Joe. What about that?
Yes, and look, and I would have one worry, and I just relate to the people of Clonmel this morning, that I don't want anybody to intimidate me or come up to me and tell me that I shouldn't be talking about this issue, because it's a very serious issue for a number of people across the town, and I won't take any intimidation by anyone. I'll just say that to anyone that might be listening that might think that I'm wrong on what I'm talking about. Now, what I'm seeing is people generally that would have a drug issue they'd be on social welfare, or they'd be on some kind of support. And these people collect their social welfare money maybe in the post office or the social welfare office, and the post office, and they're waiting for the people taking their money, and they're threatening people.
You just dropped out there for a moment. Are you saying the drug dealers are waiting then for these people to collect their money and taking it off them? Is that what you're saying, Joe?
Exactly, Fran. And you could ask, if you ask any family and that is experienced in this, and there's numerous families across the town, and it's wrong. But the unfortunate thing is we don't have enough members of Garda Síochána.
But that's just up from the Garda station there. That's...
I know, Fran. Like it's hard to think of that we're in society at the moment where this kind of carry on is acceptable, and there's nothing being done about it. But all these things they're kind of connected to each other. We have an impact on mental health because we don't have mental health services here in Clonmel. Education isn't ever going to alleviate itself. People are supposed to go into 9-to-9 for a support, and then they can move on to long-term housing, but that's not happening. And then we have the methadone clinic that isn't alleviating itself, and we have people coming from all over the Munster, and it's been condensed into Clonmel. So all these problems are rolling over on themselves, and it's an awful thing. And I just want to say, friend, whenever I hear people talking about drugs and that, they never really mention the impact on the local town economy. And I think that...
What is that impact, Joe?
The town has lost out massively on, say, trade, and and for business people, nobody is encouraged to open a business on O'Connell Street at the moment because there's a lack of policing on the streets. There's a lack of funding into the town centre, and then we have this major problem where we have people roaming around the streets, and they have no help whatsoever. They're left to do what they want.
And do people feel intimidated by what's going on, do you think?
100%. If you walk on O'Connell Street on a Friday evening, I would say even 7 to 9, you would feel very intimidated, and that's wrong on a Friday evening, And I think it puts people off going out in the night. We seen what happened a couple of weeks ago outside the Parnell Grill. Like that kind of thing is normalised now in society, where people can it's the violence, and it's been brought out by drugs. It's been brought out by, I suppose, people are self-aware that they can get away with whatever they want now in society.
And Joe, I'm just about out of time, but sometimes when somebody like yourself comes on air with me and we discuss this, we quite often would have critique saying, you're talking down the town, you're giving a bad impression of the town. And what do you say to that?
First of all, friend, I'd just like to say that I'm definitely not talking down the town. I think we live in a wonderful town in Clonmel, but we cannot ignore this issue. And I'd just like to say, friend, that I'm definitely 100% in support of the positive contribution to the town, but we also need to be looking at this from a different angle. We can't just say that Clonmel is great and be centred into that narrative. We need to respect the issues, but we also need to show ways that we can resolve the issues. And I just came on this morning to outline this. I do a lot of work with people across the community, different organisations and bodies, and people like Healthy Communities, Launch Care. These people can alleviate this problem, and I try to work closely with these people just to float ideas and that, and hope that there can be some measure,
All right, Joe. Well, good to talk to you today, and thanks for taking time out for us, Joe. Look after yourself. Thank you. Bye-bye. That's a 17-year-old community activist in Clonmel, Joe Hawkins. News and information is coming up.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24111.
Thanks, Pat, and welcome back to Tip Today. 1800 938 007. The text and WhatsApp is 083 311 3311. Big reaction to young Joe Hawkins speaking to us there. Well said, Joe. It says, speaking out about drugs, about time the councillors did the same. Well, in fairness, the councillors have done on the programme over the last few years. Somebody else saying Joe was incorrect. People do move on from the 9 to 9. I'm working with people who were in the 9 to 9 but have progressed to own front door accommodation. And somebody else being rather impolite, to say the least, saying, Fran, don't be playing the fool. We all know who's selling these drugs, and you know yourself who's doing it. Well said and well done to Joe for coming out and talking about a good man, it says here. Okay, and lots of other information coming into us about the supply of drugs in Clonmel as well. 083 311 3311. Joined now by Deputy Michael Lowry. Good morning to you, Michael.
Good morning, Fran.
And thanks for coming on with us today. Protests took place across the country yesterday, including Nenagh, to highlight the ongoing concerns of parents, schools and special needs assistants following all that controversy, Michael, over the SNA allocations for school. It was a complete mess, wasn't it?
Yes, well, Fran, as everyone knows, SNAs play a critical role in our schools, and I personally know how much they mean to school communities, to parents and to the children they support. And what happened in the past 2 weeks shouldn't have happened. It was wrong. It was inexcusable. The letters of instruction removing SNAs from their position were tone-deaf and insensitive. And obviously those letters caused huge anxiety, distress, and left parents and teachers bewildered. So I want to say, Fran, and I think I speak for every politician, I say this, all politicians, irrespective of what their background are fully committed to supporting children with special educational needs and allow them the opportunity to fulfil their potential. And it has to be remembered, and this is the irony of this dispute, that the number of SNAs allocated to schools nationally was increased by 45% over the past 5 years, a huge increase. So by the end of 26-27 year, there will be close to 25,000 NSAs in our mainstream classes, our special classes and the special schools. So I'm glad that government have agreed that there will be no reduction in special needs assistance this year, and also that the schools that have already been reviewed by the NCSE and allocated additional resources, that they will get them in the upcoming year. And finally, I looked at the figures, Fran, and I can say clearly that there will be more SNAs in Tipperary schools in mainstream, in special classes and in special schools in September 2026 than there is at present. So there will be an increase.
Yeah, that might be the case, but I was just reading today, Michael, I put it out on air earlier on that there's not enough special school places planned to meet the substantially increased needs for this coming September, for example. And again, that's inexcusable, isn't it?
Yes, I think that's the biggest failing that we have, that we're not creating the spaces, we're not planning ahead. Those special schools are inundated with requests for admission. In a lot of cases, admission is refused because they simply don't have the space or the capability to take them. And that is something that we have raised at government level, and that's something that I hope will be addressed. As you know, Scolengus is getting a new school in Cashel. Skull Cormac is, under daily pressure, coping extremely well in very difficult circumstances. They're the two of our principals' schools, and they need our support, and they need certainly additional funding, and they need additional accommodation.
That's for sure. With your experience of holidays, maybe you could explain something to me. Those emails that went out about the relocation of the SNAs and stuff, and how was that allowed if it wasn't signed off by Cabinet? How did that actually even happen?
Well, look, the question I asked during the week, I said you have the NCSE, you have the Department of Education, you have special advisors, you have a huge amount of civil servants in place. And I, for the life of me, can't understand how anybody, first of all, could dictate that kind of a letter. Secondly, get someone to sign off on the letter, and thirdly, send it out without bringing it to the attention or approval of Cabinet, because it was a major decision to make. And to send a letter to a school and say that within a couple of months you're going to lose 5 SNAs, I mean, it just defies logic.
Well, that's for sure. People are very, very angry about it as well. You've said, Michael, that Roscrea will get a brand new Dean Maxwell. Now, there's been many false dawns around the Dean Maxwell home there, so I suppose the questions are where, when, and what about the funding?
Well, first of all, can I say that the future of Dean Maxwell, Fran, as you know, because you were in the middle of a couple of debates and disputes that we've had about it, has long been a contentious and divisive issue. And it was and has been the subject of numerous public meetings and protests. And throughout all of that, the people of Roscrea were strong and brave in their desire to protect and to save a facility which is at the heart of their community. And what I noticed over the years was that the bond between the people of Roscrea and the Dean Maxwell is absolutely extraordinary. It's exceptional. So as a result of this week's announcement by the HSE, with the approval of government, that bond will remain intact, and the future of Dean Maxwell is secure and is bright. And Roscrea, as a result of those decisions, is to get a new modern Dean Maxwell. That's something that I fought long and hard for. I put in an enormous amount of work behind the scenes in, first of all, stopping the transfer of patients out of Dean Maxwell, and then stopping the closure of Dean Maxwell, and then working to find a long-term solution to it. I've worked with the HSE, I've worked with RCDC, I've worked with government ministers, I brought RCDC to Dublin to meet with the Taoiseach, John Lupton, Liam Shanahan, and could I mention today one person that I really miss in Roscrea when I was over this week to make this announcement was the late Steve Crofton.
Yeah.
Steve took the minutes at every meeting, and when fire would be around him, Steve wouldn't lift his head. He'd stay writing. He was very committed and very dedicated to the cause. And,
for sure.
And it's great. Yeah.
So, Michael, where will the new Dean Maxwell be then? On what site?
Well, so the first thing we had to do here was to change the HSE policy. And after numerous meetings with the HSE agreed that the elderly care should be serviced in Roscrea itself, and they shouldn't have to transition to Nenagh or any other town. So once we got over that principle and got agreement on that, the next step was to say, well, what can we do? So the existing Dean Maxwell and his site was surveyed and it was appraised, and it proved to be not practical or feasible to do anything on that site. So it then moved, and I got the HSE to send out and request expressions of interest to purchase a greenfield site for a new Dean Maxwell. Arising from that, which was a public call, we got 5 people to respond who said that they had sites that were deemed suitable. The HSE asset management team assessed what was available and came to the conclusions that there was 2 sites very suitable. And then they progressed and said that one site was the best option. So there's 2 sites in play, and negotiations are ongoing and at an advanced stage with the preferred option. So that's the site, and the site is both sites actually are eminently suitable. They're adjacent to, in the middle of the town, and will make an excellent location for everyone to access. So after that, then, once we have a site, the next thing was to get it into the HSE's capital programme. I had several meetings with the HSE executive on that, and the HSE executive in the Midwest region sent a proposal to the Department of Health that it should be included. And then, of course, politics took over, and I had to ensure that we got political approval for it, and the government have approved that. So,
and how much money are we talking about there?
Well, the estimated cost of the Dean Maxwell is 23 million. It's a new 50-bed unit. It's on a greenfield site. It will provide long stay, short stay, respite and palliative care. And the important thing, I've met with some of the staff in Dean Maxwell, the important thing is that the existing Dean Maxwell will continue in full service in the interim, and on completion of the new project, that will be repurposed to create a modern daycare centre, which is really needed for the older people in Roscrea town and district. So from my point of view, this is a superb outcome. It's a wonderful day for Roscrea and its people. I want to thank the people of Roscrea for the support they've given to Dean Maxwell, and I want to thank the RCDC and the families care group who put a lot of pressure on and who assisted and supported in bringing this day about.
23 million we're saying for, and is that in the HSE capital programme now? Is that guaranteed?
Yes, it's in the national HSE plan. Obviously, there's procedures before you can draw down the plan. And look, Fran, every time I went to do something with Dean Maxwell, somebody came out of the woodwork and tried to block it or stop it or have negativity. We're gone beyond negativity. We have this. We now have a firm commitment from both the HSE and the government, and this plan for a new Dean Maxwell in Roscrea will happen.
And I'm just looking at the HSE info in front of me here, and their allocation for 2026 for the Dean Maxwell is just €10,000. So how does that play into this, Michael?
What Dean Maxwell have to do, what the HSE do, is there's a national capital plan, multi-billion plan. Incorporated in that, if you read the National Development Plan on the other side of that plan, you will see where a new unit for Dean Maxwell is sanctioned. You'll see that the HSE capital plan as well is sanctioned. The funds are available and will be drawn down as required. At the moment, they only needed 10,000 to pay effectively those that have assisted them with securing the site. But the money is allocated for it when it's required.
And what about Mount Carmel, Michael? Because again, this is something you and I would have discussed a lot over the years. What's the story there with the old convent?
Well, again, I suppose, to give you the background to that, to refresh your mind and your listeners' mind, Mount Carmel Nursing Home was making losses, which the order could not sustain. And then a local community or a management buyout was looked at, but that proved not viable. And effectively, the home was on the market for sale and could have been lost to Ross Gray as a healthcare provider for the people of the town. Sister Luke and our management team made contact with me. I sat with them. We went through it. Sister Luke was very anxious that the ethos of the centre would be retained and, if at all possible, that the building would remain as a nursing home. I then contacted the HSE and we had a huge amount of interaction between Mount Carmel management, HSE and myself. And after a lot of discussion and negotiation, a deal was done for the HSE to purchase the property. A price was agreed, and I got Department of Health approval and funding to complete the deal. Then, Fran, what happened was during the due diligence process, to everyone's great disappointment, it was discovered that what is actually a relatively new facility did not comply with fire safety regulations. And the scale of work and the cost involved in remedies was very substantial. Now, thankfully, over the past 12 months, that work has been done. It is now completed. During the course of the work, obviously, it caused great inconvenience. Each room had to be done out separately. And Marion and the staff in Dean Maxwell worked together with the contractor to minimise the disruption to the patients. And I have to say today publicly that Marion has been outstanding throughout the process. In fact, all that work wouldn't have been done without the exceptional management skills that she's shown. So the work is complete. The HSE have been in site on several occasions in the past couple of weeks. Management training to HSE and the HICWA standards, that has occurred and taken place. The 63 staff that are working in Mount Carmel, they've had meetings with the HSE HR department. They've had training and induction days. And I've met the staff on a number of occasions. They're absolutely delighted that their jobs are secure. They're transferring across to the payroll of the HSE. And obviously for them, the pay terms, the conditions, the pension entitlements, and general work practices are better than what Sister Luke and her order could afford them. So I think as well, it has to be said that the staff at Mount Carmel have been very patient and loyal to Sister Luke. And now I'm delighted that that uncertainty has lifted and they look forward to working under the new arrangement. So again, Fran, the question is, the funds are in place, the contracts are agreed, and formal handover will take place in a matter of probably 5 to 6 weeks.
Can I finally ask you about the Garda College in Templemore? Because whenever we talk about this recently, there seems to be uncertainty. What is the latest on the Garda College in terms of there possibly being a second campus and the like?
I raised this, Fran, during negotiations for government, and there's an insertion in the programme for government that Templemore Garda Training College will remain and continue to function and into the future as the primary training centre for Gardaí. And the problem that exists in Templemore is, I suppose, a case of the Department of Justice have increased the numbers of trainees, and it has raised a capacity issue. Like if you take, I inquired last week as what kind of numbers are on site in the Garda College. There's 398 staff working there. There's 420 trainees. There's 60 course participants. So you're talking about almost 1,000 people on that site in the Templemore Garda Training College. So we're looking at ways to, first of all, better use the space that's within the college. And as part of that, this week, a lease agreement has been reached with an adjacent property owner to access space for 300 cars. This area will obviously have to be secured and monitored. This will free up significant space within the training campus. We're also looking at the driving school. That has a large footprint within the college grounds, and it's in a central location. There is a property which would be ideal to accommodate the driving school, has been identified, and formal approval to start a negotiation is being sought. And if that driving school space is freed up, the idea would be that you'd have the space to build a new residential accommodation block. And ultimately, the problem in Templemore is accommodation for the trainees. The number of trainees is increasing every year. There's a commitment in the programme for government to increase them further, and we simply have to deal with the capacity issues in Templemore.
And why wouldn't they use the lands that they secured out around Clonmel there? Because I understand, is there a big manor house there as well that could be a place for accommodation?
There's a large property. It's approximately, I think there's 120 acres of arable land. There's about 95 acres of forestry. There has been a reluctance to use it on the basis of its distance from the college. But let me say to you, Fran, that first of all, the future of Templemore Garda Training College is secure. Every effort at the moment is being made. There's a lot of things happening that I can't talk about on air, but I can assure you there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes, looking at different options. The local management in Templemore have sent forward options to the Department of Justice. I met last week with Minister Jim O'Callaghan and Minister Boxer-Moran of the OPW, and a number of suggestions are being progressed at the moment. So there is a commitment there, and there is a desire to improve the circumstances, and particularly in relation to capacity.
But those lands at Clonmel, is that not part of the discussion anymore? Is that?
It is part of the discussion, and also there's another parcel of land which is in proximity to college, is under how would I put it, under review as well.
Okay, interesting. But the idea, though, that guards might do some of the modules somewhere else isn't completely discounted, is it, at this point?
No, and I know, and I think it will happen, Fran. I think that, what people don't realise is there's already a number of modules being conducted from the Technical Institute in Thurles, Technical University in Thurles, and also from
UL, isn't there?
Yes, from UL. Yeah. So that's happening already, and there may be a further expansion of that.
Right, but that won't take from the integrity of the college. Are you telling me?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. In actual fact, it would allow the college, I suppose, the freedom to concentrate and focus on delivery of the trainees out of the college. I don't see that that's going to impinge because, as I said, it's already happening, and obviously other institutes have put in a request that they may be able to deliver online courses from their colleges, and that's what's under review at the moment.
Right. Quite a few people on to us to know, can you give a timeline where Dean Maxwell is concerned, Michael? Can you give anything definitive on that?
Well, as I said, we're almost complete with the negotiations in relation to the sites. There's two partners there willing to sell. The question is to negotiate the price. So there's two options. Hopefully one of those options comes through in the next 7 weeks. I think that's the timeline that has been put on it. And then the design of it will happen then, and then obviously it has to go to tender. But I will certainly see it happening. I'm not going to put a time in it, Fran, but it's going to happen. That's all I can say.
Right, but at some stage in 2026, do you think there might be shovels at the ready?
No, you couldn't, Fran. It'd be hard to get the house built in 2026 at this stage. Never mind, say, a facility of this magnitude. I would say that we'd certainly get in a position where the site will be purchased, where the design work will be complete, where tender documents will be probably ready 2026, 27, and hopefully we can get a start on it then.
All right. Thanks for your time this morning, Michael. Thank you, and good morning to you. And that's Deputy Michael Lowry speaking to us this morning. 1800 938 007.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, puck on. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Social dance correspondent Jamie was back to say, Fran, I found out that Teddy and Cathal Barry are playing in Holland Féile tonight, and Brian McDermott in Feathered, in that lovely Feathered Hall on this coming Sunday night as well. Now, on yesterday's programme, Tipperary journalist Fionn Sheehan joined us on the show. Last week, Fionn, who's Irish editor with the Irish Independent, appeared as a panellist on The Tonight Show on Virgin Media. Now, viewers were quick to notice that he was the only member of the panel wearing ashes on his forehead, a visible mark, as you know, of Ash Wednesday observance, and it sparked quite a wave of commentary online. Her good friend, Father Iggy O'Donovan, joins me now. Father Iggy, good morning to you.
Good morning, Fran. Good morning, listeners.
And thanks for coming on with me this morning. Were you surprised, Iggy, by the reaction to Fionn wearing the ashes? Some people praising him online, while others very, very critical indeed of what they saw as an open display of Catholic tradition.
Well, interesting. As you say, it's an open display of Catholic tradition, a very simple one. But my worry would be, Fran, that have we come to the point where we're so insecure in our new secularism that just about anything upsets us? If you know what I mean. Yeah. I'll illustrate with a simple little example. Some years ago, I was living in Rome. And I remember going over to the famous spot, the Spanish Steps, just before Christmas. And the mayor, Veltroni was his name, a non-believer, he was unveiling a Christmas crib. And it was a magnificent crib in ancient Neapolitan style.
Yes. Fantastic.
On public display, done by Rome Corporation on the Spanish Steps. I got back to my room, and I was listening to a drive time program, or one of those programs on RTE anyway it was. And there was a row going on about something about a crib being on display in St. James's Hospital, and how it was offending, say, non-Catholics or non-Christians or whatever. And, in a secular hospital, it ought not to be on display. And really, this was mixing religion and health and all kinds of things. And it struck me there, I had just come back from the public display at the Spanish Steps by a non-believing, secular Italian mayor. And nobody had the slightest problem. They seem to have a maturity that they can take this on board, ignore it if you don't like it, but for goodness sake, don't make such a big issue of it. And that struck me about.
And what is it all about then? Are we ashamed in some way of any sort of display of that Catholic tradition? Is that what it is?
Okay, maybe some of it may be a reaction, maybe to an excessive display of Catholic tradition in the past. And as someone who grew up in the Glen of Arlow, I've seen that.
Yes.
But nevertheless, and Fionn, I think, is a fellow Tipp man, as far as I know.
He is indeed, from Thurles, yeah.
And he said that part of his reasoning for wearing the ashes was in his family. He particularly remembered his father.
Yeah.
And that he always did it, and that he thinks of him at this time. Fair enough. But all it simply says, the ashes, is that, look, I'm a Christian, I'm preparing for Easter. Ashes is a sign of repentance. I remember, God, I've seen it at home with my own family and others in the Glen, in giving up the old pint for Lent.
Yeah.
Now, are you offending people who like their drink, or people who are teetotalers or whatever, by doing something with alcohol for Lent or not drinking it? I mean, where are we to draw the line? The Easter lily? I mean, goodness, it's endless.
Yeah.
And I think some of these old traditions, and the ashes one, incidentally, goes back way before Catholicism. It's an ancient Jewish practice, 1,000 years before Christ. And simply what I wore it now this year here in Dublin. And frankly, all I'm saying is, look, I'm a Christian. I'm a sinner. I'm in need of salvation, need of help. That's me. And look, if somebody doesn't believe or whatever, just ignore me. And that's the way I see it too.
He made a lovely point, though, Iggy. He said that the cathedral that he got the ashes in, when he looked around him in the cathedral, he was making a point about how inclusive it was. I mean, there were people there from other countries, you know, and it was quite a mix of people there to receive the ashes and to be there for the ceremony. So he said instead of a divisive thing, he saw it as inclusive.
And it is inclusive. And look, Fran, I hope this isn't controversial. If I believed in hell, at the lowest point in it, I would have illiberal liberals, because liberals, by definition, are meant to be tolerant people who can understand, who can be inclusive and understand different traditions. But when I hear a liberal, and in the name of liberalism, putting down a religious believer, or ridiculing the shamrock, or yes, that's another one, the shamrock. I mean, is that another one we should be ashamed to wear on Patrick's Day, because somehow or other we'll offend someone who happens not to be a follower of St. Patrick or Catholic or Christian or whatever it might be? I mean, there's simply be no end to this. And I love that word inclusivity, because it's a thing that, insofar as I try to reconcile my faith, and I do the best I can with modernity and with the world in which I live, I find that inclusivity, look, in many ways, we poor human beings were in a lifeboat, waiting to be saved wherever we're going, I'm not sure. But there's a seat in there for everyone, whether he's a true believer or a hanger-on, or an agnostic or whatever he is. Well, there's room for us all.
But the liberals, or as you call them, the liberals, we seem to embrace other cultures beautifully and acknowledge and pay respect and homage to them, actually. But we seem to want to dismiss this part of our culture.
Incidentally, that's interesting. Who I heard say that not so long ago was a fellow broadcaster, you'll know him, George Hook.
Yes, yeah.
And George was saying he was dealing with his grandchildren. My God, he said, they come home from school, and my God, he said, they can tell me about the various Muslim festivals. They can tell me about the Jewish festivals. Yeah. But my God, he said, they don't seem to have a clue about the Catholic faith, which in theory they're brought up. And I said, it's an interesting little observation.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that sort of knowledge about other faiths. And I know that you would say that yourself, and it's great, but we are dismissing a whole part of our culture, you know.
Well, yes, there is the danger that the baby goes out with the bathwater. And besides some of these traditions, whether it be the ashes or the shamrock, God knows, I think it was May Eve, my father used to light a little fire in the garden. Somehow he had some theory that it improves your crops or something, or kept away evil spirits. Call it silly superstition, call it what we want. But it was a lovely old tradition. I think as well, a simple thing now, in the very simpler days, I remember my mother putting a candle in the window, a red candle, on Christmas Eve, as did many neighbours at that time. And the theory was that the Holy Family were homeless. Mary, Joseph and Jesus, they were homeless. And they might be passing your way. Okay, call it childish superstition, call it what you like. But wasn't it a beautiful image?
I think it's gorgeous. I think that's gorgeous.
The image that they're homeless.
Yeah.
They might pass this
and
way.
And what is wrong with that?
In our humble cabin in Galtymore, they're welcome.
What could anybody see offensive or wrong about that, you know?
It's a little bit, I think, George Bernard Shaw famously put it one time about the Irish language. He was a little bit concerned. He felt that our new state was putting too much emphasis on Irish and the necessity for it. And he said, look, if you have a broken leg, you're very conscious of the lower part of your body. And so what I feel is with the liberals here, they're not so secure in their liberalism at all. So therefore, by having a go at Fionnán Sheahan, or having a go at the Shamrock, or having a go at Lenten observance, in fact, they're actually a true liberal and a true secularist wouldn't be worried about these things at all, because they're secure in their belief. If you're not so secure, then your thing is to ridicule Fionnán or ridicule others. And I find that somewhat a bit sad. And I really, because inclusivity is a word that almost that I try to including all that I believe in. And really, as I said to you earlier, there's a seat in the lifeboat for everyone, creed, colour or otherwise.
And that's the way it should be as well. And finally, Father Iggy, could I put it to you, at least it started a conversation that I think people need to have, you know, or I might have been afraid to have, in fact.
That's the great thing. I recall a big row about 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. Mrs. McAleese received Holy Communion in Christchurch Cathedral.
Yes, I remember it well, yeah.
And there was a hell of a row.
Yeah.
And for a fortnight afterwards, Eucharistic theology was argued about in this country. The air was crackling with theological energy.
Yes.
As believers and non-believers and everybody got in on the act. And Mrs. McAleese's little act of taking the communion did more for Eucharistic discussion than the old John McQuaid catechism did in 50 years.
But of course she was president at the time. It's important to point that out.
But her gesture, and I'm sure looking back on it, she probably knew the gesture she was making.
I'm certain of it, yes.
Yes, but it had that spin-off effect. And Fionn, and he says himself that he's not an overtly pious religious man.
Yeah.
Fionn has probably done more for the discussion on ashes and so forth than all of us clergy put together this Lent.
Well, that's a good thing indeed. Lovely to talk to you as always, and I hope you're doing well, Father Iggy.
My prayer this Lent is that, for God's sake, can Tipp do it back to back?
keep praying for it. Keep praying for it. Thanks, Iggy. Thank you. Good morning to you. Bye-bye to you. Bye-bye. Wonderful man. Father Iggy O'Donovan speaking to us there from Dublin. Of course, he's no longer living amongst us here. We'll take a break, back in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puck-On. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long-wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puck-On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Join the conversation in Tipperary. Contact us through Facebook, Twitter, or email tiptoday@tippfm.com.
Tony is in Ballymac and he says religious symbolism by a hospital is entirely unnecessary and demonstrates the insidious nature of symbolism. As I said, that's Tony in Ballymac. Yeah, I mean, you might feel that way, Tony, but, you know, certain people, particularly, I suppose, older people who would have a great faith if they're in a hospital situation, they might feel cared for more. They might feel that it's important to have some form of religious symbolism, particularly if that's the former culture of the hospital. Continuing on with our conversation around the historic potential of Thurles, community activist Tommy Barrett joins me now. Good morning to you, Tommy.
Morning, friend.
Good to talk to you. You heard our conversation with Councillor Jim Ryan, and earlier on we spoke to John Mort about it as well. Do you agree with Jim's assertion that there should be more made of the fact that Thurles is the birthplace of the GAA?
Well, I suppose the GAA is a massive, generates massive income for Thurles. First of all, I think that's the first thing to say, Fran. You know, we think back to the 2024 Munster final, 3.2 million was brought to Thurles from the GAA.
Yeah.
So it's a massive generating for income for businesses across Thurles, and we should be grateful for that. But I also, going back to, 1884, GA was founded in Thurles. My own relation, Michael Campbell, was at that first meeting in the billiard room in Hazel's Hotel.
Mm.
And, yesterday, I had a meeting with Jack Halley, the owner of Hazel's Hotel. And, he informed me when he first bought the hotel that he put a lot of work into potentially opening a heritage centre or a visitor centre.
Yes.
And, that was going to incorporate the billiards room. But, ran into a lot of issues and difficulties and things that slowed it down, and it didn't work out the way he had planned.
And is it part of future planning, do you think?
Well, he had the curator of the museum down from Croke Park, and, the big thing there was what artefacts would he have? Many people have given over medals and hurleys and jerseys to Croke Park and to GA headquarters, and whatever is going to take place has to be long term and sustainable and feasible, and who's going to maintain all these issues have to be discussed and properly thrashed out. But from meeting Jack, he's very passionate, and he knows about the history, and he knows about such an important cultural centre that Hazel's Hotel is.
And did I read, were you in touch with GAHQ as well yourself, Tommy, were you?
I was in touch with Jarlath Burns, the GA president. And he also, like one of the things he said to me was, the significance of the GA being founded in Hayes Hotel in 1884 is something we must always honour properly and present imaginatively.
Right. So, when is this going to happen?
Well, I suppose at a local level, Fran, I don't know if you heard about the Thurles Lions Club Heritage Trail.
Sure, yeah.
That is starting off. That's something that I think needs to be mentioned. That's going to bring in key GA heritage sites throughout Thurles, such as the Archbishop Croke Memorial, the first patron of the GA.
Yeah.
Hayes Hotel, Tom Semple's grave above in St Mary's, and of course John probably touched on that when we were speaking to him.
Yeah.
So that's going to be tied together. And the thing about that package now is, can we get people down to take part in that through the great rail network we have in Thurles? And that's going to be self-directed, and there's going to be little posts put up there, and people can scan the QR code and get more information.
Yeah, and that's all great, and it's down the line, I presume. But what about the notion of putting Lorna Park or the GAA Museum at Semple Stadium itself, and having some sort of a package there that, when players arrive, that they can benefit from the history of the whole thing? Is that something you will think is a runner, or should it be?
Sure. As you know, we have the GA Museum in Lorna Park, and a lot of Sam Melbourne's collection is down there, and it's open Tuesdays to Saturdays, 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and people can take a tour of that, And I suppose there was plans over the years that the old stand would be developed, and now we're hearing about Dr. Morris.
Yes.
And I don't know, is the plan eventually for Lorna Park to move up there, and for the offices like you have there in Port Leisure, there you have the Centre of Excellence, and it's a hub of activity then up there. That would probably make sense. But I think I do agree that the billiards room in Hayes Hotel needs to have greater significance, even if it's a storyboard across the room. Like Jack Halley has put in cabinets there in the billiards room, but there's nothing in them.
It's a pity, isn't it? The other thing that Jim Ryan said to me, and I wonder what you make of it, if the birthplace of the GAA was somewhere in Cork or somewhere in Kerry or down in Killarney or Tralee, much more would be made of it. I mean, we'd all know about it, and there would be all sorts of plans around it. We don't seem to be able to do that properly. Would you agree with that?
All right, I don't, Fran. We're very proud of the birthplace of the GAA.
Well, I know we're proud of it and all of that, and of course we're all proud of it. But do you know what I mean in terms of doing something concrete with this, Tommy?
Well, I was involved, Fran, a number of years ago in the Thurles Sarsfields Festival of Gaelic Sport with Johnny Enright, and we commemorated the first All-Ireland in 1887, Thurles Sarsfields against Vilik, and there was a great pageant around that, great parades. In recent years, Jim Ryan is councillor since 1999. In recent years, the Welcome to Thurles approach road signs were erected. I mentioned at that time they should clearly say Welcome to Thurles, birthplace of the GA.
Absolutely, yeah.
They did not. Why didn't Jim Ryan point that out at the meeting at that time?
I don't know. Are you blaming Jim for that?
Well, I'm saying Jim Ryan is talking about signage. Why wasn't that integrated into the signage at the time? That should be the first thing. Like talking about the railway stations, people coming out of the railways for big match days, it should clearly say Welcome to Thurles, birthplace of the GA. Well,
that's interesting because one of the things that Jim said to me was that signage needed to be improved greatly.
But who puts up the signage? Is it the GA?
No, it's the local authority, of course. Yeah.
It's the local authority.
Yeah.
So get his act together and do it.
Right. Okay. So you're calling on Jim to what?
Well, I'm calling on Jim to say that the GA is a massive money income generator for Thurles. Hayes Hotel will sit down with Jim Ryan or anybody else to progress any issues that people have. But, a lot of work has been done behind the scenes on this.
But Tommy, you sound a bit cross with Jim Ryan for bringing this up then, are you?
Well, what I'm saying, Fran, is you mentioned signage, and I said there was a missed opportunity when the council changed the signage in Thurles. The Thurles approach road signage. That should have been clearly said on it.
Right. And it wasn't, and you reckon Jim should have pushed for that then?
Well, sure, look, it can still be done or it can still be amended, All
right.
But I think the Heritage Lions Club trail is excellent. The GA president is very much behind, developing any ideas that people have. Jack Halley is willing to sit down with anybody. And, of course, we have great county board officers who are open to discussing any issues that people have. But it's about getting the tourism people, the county board, Jack Halley, all together around the table and trash out what is feasible.
All right.
What is long-term sustainability? How is it going to work?
Well, we'll put some of what you said to Jim Ryan. We'll see if we can get a response from him. But in the meantime, Tommy, good to talk to you, and thanks for coming on with us today. And that's Tommy Barrett there, who's a community activist in Thurles. Deputy Matthew McGrath was in touch. He said he was on the same show as Fionn Sheehan a few years ago. He also had ashes on, but the makeup department had to check with the bosses if it was okay to leave the ashes on. Matthew didn't want to take it off, so he was allowed to keep them. It's interesting, though, that the makeup department had to check on that as to whether or not you could have that display of Catholicism. News and information is coming up.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1-800-938-007.
And you're very welcome back to Tipp Today. Now, because of some technical issues even, we won't have our bulletin, our 11 o'clock bulletin. Years ago on RGE, you'd be hearing, is Dunalin on Brish to Shaw? And that sort of covered everything. So I don't know, hopefully we'll be back in operation from our news desk by 12 o'clock. But in the meantime, it is time for our Friday panel, and I'm glad to be joined in the studio by Alison de Veer Hunt of Cashel Mart. Carl Clancy is with us, columnist and regular contributor to the show, and Mark Small, naval architect. You're all very welcome, and thank you for coming into us. A bit of a rush to get you all in because of
weren't expecting a straight into it. Normally we get a bit of a kind of a relax into it easy.
So we get to have a chat and all sorts of stuff. But there you go. That's the way it is. Well, we start with it because we were talking about it just there a while ago. Last week, Fionn Sheehan, Ireland editor with the Irish Independent, he appeared as a panellist on The Tonight Show on Virgin Media. Viewers were quick to notice that he was the only member of the panel wearing ashes on his forehead, and a visible mark of Ash Wednesday, of course. And Fionn spoke to us on the show, and there was Rira Augustus Labula. Well, it was kind of mixed, I suppose, online. Some people saying, fair play and well done, but a lot of cruel stuff and a lot of hatred on there as well. Alison, can I start with you on this? Were you surprised by that?
Yes and no. Like, I do think he was, right to wear the ashes onto. There were some set of ashes, to be honest.
He admitted that himself, yeah.
But like, my own were dried up by 10 o'clock, and I only got them at 5 to 10.
Yes.
But still, say, I was surprised and I wasn't surprised. I think there is a big. A lot of people have a big issue now with people, practicing their faith. And I do think there are a lot of people going back to the church. I heard Fionn on your show the other morning, and he wasn't really agreeing with that. But he was saying, there was all the Brazilians and Filipinos, etc. And that's great to see. And the amount of Bible sales is, going back to, on par with 30 years ago. I suppose we've so many liberals claiming to be open-minded, but they've no shame whatsoever in expressing their hatred towards Christianity and Catholicism.
Well, that's what Father Iggy said. How liberal are the liberals?
Well, that's it, and I think live and let live. And it's people's personal choice. So I think I can't believe in some ways that there was a furore over it. I think, you see, we'd fight over anything now.
Yeah.
It shouldn't even be up for discussion. It's kind of a little bit ridiculous.
And what do you make of the other thing that emerged in the conversation there with Iggy was that, we are quick to embrace other religions and other cultures and, pay homage to them and say, and that's a good thing too. But there's almost a shame about that past. Now, you might well bring up the whole abuse thing and maybe the treatment of women within the Catholic Church and all of that. But there appears to be a shame there of something that was so much part of Irishness.
We seem to have a shame in general. Like, the virtue signalling that goes on is just absolutely sickening at this stage. And I think in relation to the church and the abuse, I think the state has a lot to play in that. If you look, for instance, at the alumni, the gentleman from Rockwell, who is trying to bring one of his perpetrators that's still alive to court so he can face them. That's not being facilitated. He's now in fear that this man is going to die and he'll never get the opportunity to do that. So that's not coming from the church. That's more coming from, the legal, say, side of things. So it's coming from the state, really. So I think the church got an awful hammering over all the abuse, and rightly so, and it was handled poorly. Now, I don't know how you'd handle that. The PR on that would be a massive issue. But in saying that, we forget all the good priests that were there, and we forget all the good that the church did do. And I think, we can't stay bandying about all the abuse forever. Like, there's a huge amount of abuse victims that have, come to terms with what has happened and are still practicing their faith, because it's not just about that thing. And you can practice your faith without going to church, you know.
But of course, many of the victims haven't come to terms with it.
Of course, and understandably so. And I think for that man, I read an article from him last week in The Independent. He's not getting any justice because he's not getting to face his perpetrator. And I think that's a huge miscarriage of justice. I suppose the church are probably protecting him somewhat, but from our legal system and from the state.
That they're not pushing that, yeah. Mark, how do you feel about this? Is it a storm in a teacup, or have we started a conversation here?
I think it started a conversation. It's probably going to shock the whole listeners, is I actually completely and totally agree with Alison on this.
He's seen the light. He's seen the light.
I know it's going to come as a complete shock to everyone. But yeah, I think, in all the aspects of it, I think a conversation's been going on, and I totally agree. I would consider myself more of a liberal than kind of in aspects of it, but I totally agree is that there's this virtue signaling that goes on with what you consider liberals, in that, do as I do, but do as I say, but not as I do in a lot of cases. And there seems to be in Ireland a very anti-Christian, not necessarily Catholic, but Christian, doesn't matter what it is, it's the Christian, anti-Christian faith. Like, you hear the stories about the cribs being removed from hospitals and things like that. Which I think is wrong.
It's not just Ireland, though. It's the Western world largely. We seem to be pushing away Christianity and so.
I think it is, but I think it's almost within the states that are associated with a particular religion that there is an anti that religion.
Yes.
You can look at it in the Muslim states. There is sort of a pushback in those areas as well. So I think it's almost an anti whatever is the religion in your country, you're anti it. Yeah. And I think that's wrong. I think there has been fantastic, priests and nuns and that who were there, who give great service. And unfortunately, if you think of the numbers, it is a small minority of that grouping who were horrific. Be it like the Christian Brothers in the schools and things like that. But it was, generally speaking, a small minority who's just wiped the entire grouping. My view is, work away whatever religion you wish, as long as it doesn't affect me or doesn't injure someone else. Your own personal faith is your own personal faith. You have to respect wearing the ashes, and to the extent that it was. I thought there was something happened. Again, I'm not religious at all, really, and I didn't even know it was Ash Wednesday. I was going, what the hell's on his head? And my wife Adrian had to say, it's Ash Wednesday. Yes. Oh, okay. So unfortunately, that's me. Again, I'm going, yeah, great. Why not? No more than someone who wants to wear a religious cross, or you have the Sikhs wearing turbans, or you have headscarves. Unfortunately, where I do draw the line is full face coverings.
Yes.
And that's more from a security and recognise the person we're dealing with, and we are very much a society where it's a face-to-face. I don't know how I don't know how it works in, say, someone collecting a child outside of school. How do they? I don't know. I have no experience of it, but I can imagine that. Or going into banks or these things where CCTV is. So I do draw the line at certain aspects of it. But it is a big conversation in Ireland now about, can you be visibly practicing your Christian faith without being pillarized by the keyboard warriors? I think it's wrong.
Carol, what about your take on this, coming from that sort of spiritual angle that you often write about and the like? How do you feel about this?
We nearly have a clean sweep.
Oh God.
Oh
no,
I'm off home.
Ireland has a very strange relationship with Catholicism and with Christianity, in that so many Irish people profess to be Catholics, profess to be Christians, but it tends to be when there's a baptism, a communion, a confirmation, a wedding, or a funeral.
There's a lovely new term now, bouncy castle Catholics.
Yeah.
That's
a great one. But also you have the a la carte Catholic, who doesn't agree with everything that canon law says or the Bible says.
Picking and choosing.
Because you're picking and choosing. Yeah. Now, I've been a member of a couple of religions over the years, but because I couldn't find it within myself to obey all the rules of each one, I went, no, well, this club isn't for me because I don't agree with that. And if that's your edict and I can't agree with it, well, then I can't be in the club. So I had to extricate myself. The idea that the church and PR, as Alison said, the church's PR campaign surrounding abuse was probably one of the worst things that has ever been done in the history of PR, because instead of falling on the sword, they became defensive and entrenched.
And there was cover-up in some cases.
They covered up, and there was the complicity. It's almost the exact same as how people viewed Germany after World War II.
Yes.
That because the Germans didn't stand up and say something, well, then they were complicit. And complicity bred hatred.
But I think Alison alluded to it. I mean, the enormity of that exposure at the time, though, it would have been difficult for any organisation to cope with that in some way, would it not?
I think that the church looked at it the exact opposite way. We have survived everything that's been thrown at us for 2,000 years.
We can survive this.
In 100 years, we'll still be here. The church will still be here. This will be forgotten. It will be a period that was as demented as the Spanish Inquisition. But we got over that.
But is it not very interesting that the core of our conversation was the emblem, I suppose, that was displayed, and we were talking about that and, you know, whether or not he should have been pilloried for that. But here we always end up back at abuse.
Well, because the circle has to be drawn, because you can't have
and I'm not saying we shouldn't, but I just find it interesting.
You can't have a hypocrisy.
It always goes back to this.
It does, but that's also because other people, like you had a piece on Facebook yesterday on your Tipp FM page about this, and there was many comments about abuse.
Yes.
So the thing is, the opposite side often bring that up, so it's going to be brought up regardless. It just won't go away.
Yeah.
It's the whataboutery.
Yes.
I mean, it's a way of deflecting.
It is a way of deflecting, and it's a way of shutting down the argument every time, and it's a way of kind of putting, say, Catholicism out as being bad.
That's interesting. And if you do what Fionnán did then, where you blatantly wear an emblem of the church, there's no sign of humility about that, I suppose. Is that what it is?
Well, I think that's on the larger, say, kind of platform. But I see, like, I was in Mass last Wednesday morning and I was in Cashel half an hour later, and the amount of people I met, oh my God, it's Ash Wednesday, my mother's going to kill me, and that kind of thing. You know, it was like, you know, because I suppose, like, it was people in their 40s and 50s who were like, still part of that time. You know, so it wasn't, there was no mention of the abuse, but it depends on the people you meet, you know, and I suppose we're always trying to counteract that argument before it starts because it's inevitable that it's going to be brought in.
I think where I think the problem arises is to a certain extent you end up with it doesn't matter whether evangelical Christians or Muslims or whatever, with the people who are trying to convert someone else. And I think who are saying what you're doing is wrong. You know, like if you're like, I mean, you think of the, you know, back in the Dark Ages in Christianity where everything was wrong. So I think you need to respect each other's religions, or not, as the case may be. But this kind of, and you see it. I mean, you see it certainly kind of in the Christian American fundamentalist kind of things where, if you're not part of our group, well, then you're the devil. I mean, it's not like you're wrong. You're just like, you are completely wrong. And this is what causes, I think, this division in society, is that if you're not part of our club, well, then you're less than human almost.
But that's where society has gone to the point where nuance is lost.
Yeah, exactly.
And everything is black.
But I think Catholicism is quite meek now too, because of the abuses that happened in the past. So the thing is, there's not. I don't see anyone out there trying to convert anyone to Catholicism. I don't see the Catholic Church out there. With,
well, you do in America. America, yes, but
say at home here. I'm only speaking
maybe
specifically
not,
to here in Ireland.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I know what you're kind of where you're talking about, but I think that's part of, we're kind of an easy target, I think, to a degree.
Yes.
And if you were to give advice, I said this recently. I mean, if the Catholic Church was foolish enough to ask me for advice, I would say to them, become even more conservative and even more fundamental, because I believe that an awful lot of young people, for instance, are out there and they're looking for instruction. They're looking for something definitive.
Completely. And there are a lot of young people going back to the church, and maybe people
I'm
don't.
not sure about data on that.
I don't know now.
But are you saying anecdotally?
I'm just kind of saying from what I see now, and I'm not someone that would be at church a lot, but to be honest, in my circle, I know people that have gone back to Mass in the last number of years, and it's not, say, Filipino and Brazilian, and they have huge, Christian traditions and Catholic traditions.
But the people are they looking for something, Alison? Is that it?
They are, and they're looking, I suppose, for me personally, I suppose I would have, it was only really when my father died that I kind of turned back to God, and, for me, it's great solace. It offers great solace to me and great comfort, and but I wouldn't be down. I don't make church mass on a Saturday evening. I'm still at work, and on a Sunday, very seldom. But I'll pop into the church a couple of times a week.
And you would view yourself as Catholic, and
I would, and more so even as a Christian. I think it's all about how we treat people and how we behave, and asking for a bit of thanks and asking for a bit of divine intervention at times as well.
The other aspect of the Ashes, of course, is the whole business of repentance in some way. How do you view that, Mark?
I think, well, again, I'm going back a long time now when my granny used to tell me about the original sin is that we seemed, I don't believe in formalised religion. I don't believe in a God, and I don't. That's my own personal beliefs. I kind of believe is, we're here, this is it, make the best of it, and really don't, try and live with other people as best you can.
So atheist?
I would say, I probably am actually, yes. But what I do, I'm really interested in, certainly when my travel around and places I've been to, and and I have a real interest in finding out and going to talking about different religions. And where was I? I can't remember now where I was now, but we went to a mosque, and there was an open day at the mosque, and we went in and they could talk to people. Fascinating. And what I've found is that the most of the different, like Buddhism and Taoism and Muslim and all these different religions, at a fundamental level, they're all the same. You mean do good, don't harm other people. Yeah. Try and be the best, and then in different versions of being, if you're good here, you get a full life in the afterlife. I think it's where they become the religions become more fundamental and evangelical, trying to convert someone, that they have to say, well, actually, if you're not part of us, then you're worse than us.
Yes,
and I think that's where
you're going to end up in hell.
Yes, and that's where the problem arises. Yeah, and it is. But also, you see is, and I think if you look at the statistics, is that as countries become wealthier, their recognition of what you call participation in organised religion drops.
Yes.
So where you see is in countries.
And how do you view that?
Well, I think there's more choice. People say, well, in the past, Ireland,
I thought it was more that they would more tend to question something intellectually.
Well, yes,
there is.
Education helps that as well, and free choice. But also, I think there is in countries which are poor, there has to be a tendency of a more authoritarian type of structure among them, and you're being told what to do. Where if you have more wealth, you have more choice, and you can go, well, actually, I don't want to do that. Sorry.
Yes, Carl, you're smiling away there to yourself.
A couple of things.
Yeah.
Original sin was never part of original doctrine.
Was it not?
Original sin came in around the 4th century. We can thank Augustine for that. Beyond that, poor countries.
We don't like to name and blame people here for fear of defamation.
So
1600 years probably.
If Augustine is listening.
When it comes to poor countries being more religious, poor countries are the ones that need hope. Rich countries don't tend to think that they need hope.
Yes.
Good point.
And faith and hope are such.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, very good point.
That in a country that has plenty money, you found a different god. His name is Mammon, the old word for money.
Yes.
So where you don't think you need anything more than you have, you won't go looking for it. Yeah. But in a place where you think, I have nothing, all you've got is hope.
Yes.
And that breeds faith very well. That I have faith that things will get better.
And to take you back to Augustine and the original sin, then, you would dismiss that then? Do you dismiss that completely?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I will go back to our conversation on baptism, that baptism wasn't about washing away sin originally. Baptism was about welcoming the child into the faith.
Yes.
It hadn't a connotation because children weren't seen as having sin at the start, at the very, very start. But it's a much deeper dive than we have time for here.
And before we leave this, the idea of repentance, and even if we take it away from Catholicism or even take it away from Christianity, that notion of cleansing in some way, does that appeal to you?
I think that you can do that any day of the week. That, like Alison said, you want to nip into your local church and just go, hey, I've had a bad week. I've not been maybe as good as I could be. Sorry about that. I'll do better next week. That's about as much cleansing or confession as you need. Beyond that, the ashes are your way of negotiating the contract between you and God. They're your way of saying, this is what I have faith in, and I have to negotiate my way of living within the structures of this faith. Because otherwise, don't be in the faith. Leave it.
And as a final thing, at least we're having a discussion. I'm not sure even a year ago if you could have an open discussion on Catholicism among a mixed group, if you know what I mean.
It's true, and with varying, say, beliefs.
Absolutely.
Like, to be honest, I'm really enjoying this this conversation. I think it's quite uplifting, and it's there's a lot in it. As you said, there's not enough time to really and I do think, to be honest, I think the more we speak about it, not trying to convert anybody, but I do think some people are afraid to come into the room in regards to, it's like, oh, mass, I'm not going to mass, that kind of thing. Whereas do what you feel is right for you, and be proud to do it, and whatever that may be. And I think whatever you have faith in, and I think it's very important to have faith. I think it's a kind of a backbone to how you live your life and how you behave. Because as you said earlier about, Carol was saying, poorer countries, hope and faith. It's so true, and I think as we do get richer, we do forget a lot about that, because life becomes that little bit easier, I suppose, whereas, and you often find there's much more community in poorer areas, because they do have a stronger faith, and they do have a hope, and they look after each other more. Whereas when money does come into play,
it becomes more individual.
Yes.
People, the whole areas where you've excessive wealth, you see those communities are more individualistic.
But the irony,
where the fantastic is when you have communities which are deprived, you do see much more of a community spirit around.
Of course,
and there's less material goods and more about your
the
community.
irony now is that where we sent our missionaries all those years ago, now we're depending on these people to come back and be priests here, particularly from the African.
You'd have to think if someone. You'd see on the old programs going back, say, in the 40s or 50s, is that, or even the 30s, was that having the priest in the family was considered. That was you got to have a priest, or the nun in the family was a status symbol. Now what you'd almost fear is that a family were going, oh my God, they become a priest, and I think that's fundamentally wrong. Yes. Because I think we are. As a society, we are a Christian society, and I think we should make sure that the values of the Christian society as a fundamental to what we are as a country should remain. But we should be open to, allowing other religions to practice. But essentially, my own view is, we're a Christian society. You can come here, you can live by our particular ways of doing things, but don't change us.
Yes.
Because this is where I do have a problem with, is where some and it's happening in Christian religions, and they're coming over from America trying to change things and things like that as well. So I'm not just saying it's any of the Muslim or any of those. I'm saying it's these fundamentals coming over. We want you to change the way you're doing it, and I think that is where we have a problem.
But in fairness, I believe that it's the people among us here, the liberals, that are trying to make us change. To fit in with something else.
I agree.
And the NGOs.
Yeah. The further you swing to the left, the further you swing in that circle round to the right.
Yes.
Yeah. If you go left far enough, it's a globe.
Yeah.
You have to be right at some point.
Yes.
So you become so tolerant that you become intolerant because nobody can do anything to say, oh, this person's behaving this way. Okay, well, you have to let them behave that way. You can't say anything about what they're doing. Well, then, at what point do you say, well, actually, the thing that person's doing is not right? Or you can't say that.
Snowflake generation.
You have literally
right,
hamstrung yourself.
Let me take a break, and we'll be back in just a few moments' time.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
And you're very welcome back to our Friday panel. It's 11:28, just in case that jingle threw you there, just in the middle of all.
We really should have the off-air conversations on as well. They're brilliant.
You see, we're recording them. You didn't know that. You didn't know that, Mark, did you? And our Friday panel, just in case you've just joined us, Alison Devere Hunt is with us, Carol Clancy and Mark Small. The Irish-Palestine Solidarity Campaign recently released a press release on behalf of the Jews for Palestine Ireland, calling on the Football Association of Ireland to boycott the upcoming matches against Israel. Now, Zoe Lawler from the Ireland-Palestine Solidarity Campaign joined us on the show on Tuesday, calling on the FAI to halt the games scheduled for September and October. A former soldier, Donald Looney, called into the show because he believes sports should be a place without politics and that the game should go ahead. Mark, can I start with you on that? Should sport be above politics, I suppose, is the main question.
In an ideal world where there is, everybody's, happy with things and everybody's all talking, yes. I mean, I think sports should be apolitical. However, it's not. I mean, the unfortunate situation is all sport is highly politicised. Doesn't matter which the sport is across any of the ones, be it the FAI, be it the rugby, be it the Formula One. Everything is politicised. And unfortunately, when the politics enter into sport, you have to look at the Olympics and where they go. You have to look at maybe the World Cup and look. I mean, even look at the FA or the FIFA giving Trump a peace prize. I mean, everything is political. There's no doubt about it. And unfortunately, with sports, you have to deal with the politics because it's the politicians that fund sports. Essentially, the countries fund sports, and you have different connections. It's very tricky when you look at, and I find it a bit disconcerting, is that the way, say, Israel has been treated in comparison to the way Russia and Belarus have been treated is a bit odd.
Well, Russia were banned, you mean?
Russia were banned. Now, okay, Russia invaded Ukraine. That's clear cut, no problem. That they an aggressive threat. Palestine, invaded Israel. Okay, so therefore that was a starting point. But then the extent to which Israel has overreacted completely, surely that has to mitigate the fact is that yes, you have a right to defend yourself, and you did. But the extreme to which that happened, I think, has to be taken into account. Then you have to look at the courts, international courts going that, I mean, there's potential war crimes and then looking for that. And then you have, of course, Trump entering into it going, no, they're all fine. It's a mix. I think it's really, really sad. And I mean, I have been put in situations where, as a sports person myself at international level, where making decisions on as an individual against maybe something that might happen in a sporting body. And I think it's really unfair that it's been pushed on, say, individual players to make a decision where the governing bodies won't make that decision.
Yes, that is very unfair.
I think it is because, I mean, individuals. The reality of the situation is that if the FAI were to, my understanding is if they were to not play the game, there would be significant financial and potential ongoing circumstances in that, which may affect which may affect them going forward in other competitions.
So
a bit
money,
like the basketball.
money comes into this as well, obviously. And what about that notion that the Israeli team are representing all of Israel, and many Israelis do not agree with what Netanyahu?
No, I'm sorry, but I mean, you can say the same about Russia. I mean, I know plenty of Russian individuals.
Well,
who
I was
have
just
nothing
putting
to do
this to you because this is
no,
the
no. I
argument
mean,
that comes up.
that's wrong. I mean, that's just plainly wrong. They represent a nation. So you're representing your country. So therefore, unfortunately, you're tied to that. No more than, I mean.
Right. So what should happen, Mark?
Well, I think the game should go ahead, but I think maybe some kind of protest should be, or visible protest should be there. Maybe like whatever is particularly without outside the sport itself, maybe at the stadium or something. I don't know, but there should be our dissatisfaction.
Right, but the game should go ahead.
Well, I think the consequences for the sport. I mean, the FAI needs funding, and I think the consequence for, say, grassroots, it could be much more than just this particular.
All right.
thing.
Okay, Carol, what do you make of this? Should the games go ahead?
Well, I think the fact that we're talking about the politics of it rather than the sport of it, as our leader tells us that it really is a political argument or political wrangle and not a sports wrangle. So we have to park should the games go ahead for a moment and say, well, why are we having the political wrangle? And the political wrangle is down to the UEFA Charter has 2 rules in it that the Israelis break on a regular basis.
Yeah. Which is?
Their 7B, which says that if a member of the Israeli domestic league is from the occupied territories, that that Israel should not be allowed to play international soccer, because that's an illegal occupation. So a team from an illegally occupied area. And then there's 73, I think it is, which deals with Israel and racism. Well, basically says that anybody who's supporting racism shouldn't be included in the UEFA competitions. So it regularly breaks those 2 rules. But I think, because I was having a chat with Alison, I'm not going to steal the line.
I forget it's a steal away.
But earlier, that the idea was that either on one side we agree that the rules need to be implemented and we don't play, or on the other side we accept that UEFA aren't implementing the rules, so we have to play. It's one or the other. We can't do both. And really simply, to go back to Mark's idea of they're representing their country, I went and had a look at a bunch of polls on what Israelis think of what's going on. Between 60 and 82% of Israelis support the removal of Gazans from Gaza. Of that, half of them support forced removal. 47% agree with the IDF's position that they should be treating the campaign the exact same way as Joshua going into Jericho, which was kill every inhabitant of the city.
Wow.
So if they are going to be the people that are the team is representing.
Where is that data coming from, though?
Penn State University.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't just lick it off a stone.
No. But I had to ask. I'm intrigued. What is the line that he was going to rob?
I can't remember. I'm like, what is it?
Don't worry, it'll come.
No.
What do you make of it all, Alison?
I don't think there should be politics in sport. I'd be looking at it more from the sports point of view rather than the political point of view. UEFA should be, like they banned Russia, there has to be equality across the board. I think if this match isn't played, it's the Irish team that'll suffer. They'll lose 6 points, and by losing 6 points, they slide down the National League B and potentially could drop into, say, Nation C. This would affect their position for the 2028 Euros, which were to co-host. Like, that's pretty massive. This is these people. It's not a game just for them. It's their careers, and we're not always at the top of the the food chain in relation to winning games, that like 6 points to us and to just give it away is massive.
Same could be said about Eurovision, though, Alison.
Same could be said about Eurovision, but the thing is, the same could be said about Iran. Iran are playing in the World Cup in, say, this year, and their first group is against New Zealand, Belgium and Egypt. There's not a word about that. There's not a word about Egypt and the massacres and genocide that's going on, Nigeria, and what's going on there with Boko Haram, etc. So the thing is, if we're going to make a rule, it has to be across the board. We can't just say ban the likes of Russia. It has to be a rule that's implemented in regards to all countries, and I think it's a very unfair position to put the FAI in, that they have to decide. Well, now I know they're deciding to play the game.
So was it the international body that should have made a decision on this?
Completely, and the thing is, the Irish team were caught between a rock and a hard place, because at least if the international body, if UEFA decide, then the likes of the Irish team can't lose 6 points. Whereas if they choose to forfeit this game, they will lose the 6 points. So they're going to suffer. So I think that's grossly unfair.
So go ahead with the game.
I think the game has to go ahead.
And that notion that Carl put forward, that there should be some form of protest.
Well, see,
my only fear about that, will it ignite trouble among fans? And
the chief executive of the FAI, David Corral, I think his name is, he did say that the game is going to go ahead, but that they would be making it isn't about money, that they'd be making a significant donation to Gaza. So, I suppose that's...
Well, would it not be better then to maybe, as a show of protest, is to do it behind closed doors?
Maybe
so.
So
rather than give the money away, just
how do you mean have the games behind?
Have the game behind closed doors?
Well, they could do that.
And then, because that would be a very visible, because from the television point of view, is that they've decided to, right, we're going to play the game, no fans. And that would be visible, because it'd go around the world as seeing something, a visible thing, and
so
that would not be.
In fact, it would be more powerful. You're saying.
Well, RTE have come out and said that they're contractually obliged.
So they have to play. So they're going to have, and they see this,
and
then put
an empty stadium.
Empty stadium, and put your flags up, pro-Palestinian flags or whatever, in an empty stadium.
Yeah.
No, but I think there should be no, say, flags of any sort.
Yeah, I was going to say, would that be fair to the players?
I don't know.
But you see, there's two ways of looking at it. One is, okay, they're going to play the game. I mean, the players have to play the game. If they want to be if they say that the FAI are going to say they're going to make a substantial donation to Gaza, for argument's sake, well then, okay, that's costing the FAI. They're taking the money in from the gates and they're going to do it somewhere else. Maybe just play it. If you say rather than do that, just play it behind closed doors.
I think the FAI can only really give the donation, though. I think I think because it's a sport, and like music as well, I think they can't be they can't get involved in that to that level of it.
The government could make a decision and say that because of inverted commas, as I'm doing here, because of security concerns, we're recommending, and potential threat, which is something that you can't really say, is that we have now said it's going to be played behind closed doors.
Yes.
The Dutch would probably agree that there could be a security threat based on what happened in Amsterdam.
I think there could. Yeah. I mean, there's potential for significant issues with this game.
If you crochet it back to what we talked about earlier, in terms of morality, Christianity, Catholicism, whatever you want to call it, I'll use a metaphor. You can't have faith without blood. You have to be prepared to stand up and say, this is my belief, and though it may cost me, it will continue to be my belief. If we have a belief that what's happening is wrong, do we not have a moral obligation to say, actually, no matter the cost, we are not going to do this because morally it's repugnant to us as a people?
But I suppose if you look at Israel, since the October 7th attack, which was the very beginning of what's going on now, Israel have played 20 international games, and there hasn't, there's probably been a little bit of shamazel, we'll say, along the way, but does anyone remember it? Say I'm not following them, but.
So, but I think what do you mean, Alison? That too much is being made of this?
I mean, if they decide we're going to play this behind, now obviously for security reasons, whatever the best course of action is the best course of action, but is it going to be remembered tomorrow? Today's news, tomorrow's chip paper. I'd say.
But is it not about principle more than any of those things?
Well, the thing is, it's sport, and I think sport should not be about politics. So
I think
it's not about principle.
The sport did work in South Africa. I mean, the bans and that did influence eventually. I mean, over a period of time.
But it was time. That's why I'm saying that the last 20 games haven't been an issue.
Yeah.
Really,
they haven't.
It hasn't. No. So I think is why Ireland seems to often be the fall guy. It's like going back to the virtue signalling. So do we need to always be the one that's out of the forefront? Say...
Yeah, we're punching above our weight, Alison.
Well, we need to remember on our national scale, not just a global scale. And I think that's forgotten about a lot. There's a lot happening at home nationally. And look, I have huge sympathy for what's going on in Gaza. I've huge sympathy though for what's going on in Iran and Nigeria too, and Ethiopia and Sudan. There's countless places. So the thing is, I think
we pick our wars.
We do, and I think if you're going to make a stand, you make a stand for all.
All right, let me take a break. We're back with our panel in just a few moments.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tip today on 1800 938 007.
And you're welcome back to our Friday panel, who are in a very good mood today and not arguing with each other at all. Carol Clancy is with us, Alison de Vere Hunt and Mark Small. On Monday, Councillor Jim Ryan, he joined us, and he said he believes that Thurles needs to do more to promote its heritage and culture, particularly where the GAA is concerned, it being the birthplace of the GAA community activist Tom Hennessy. Then joined in the conversation, and he took to social media to share the ways he believes that Clonmel and Care could be promoted better, and the rich heritage of that. This morning on the show we heard from several contributors on this as well, including John Wirt, and earlier on there we spoke to Tommy Barrett as well. Carol, can I start with you? Are we missing opportunities, do you think, in terms of tourism? And we need tourism, and particularly going forward we'll need more tourism, I believe anyway. What about that?
100% we are missing a trick, left, right and centre. I was down in...
you didn't even have to think about that,
no,
so you feel strongly about that, do you?
Quite.
Yeah.
And not for the first time. I was down in Blarney Castle recently, in January, and the place was thronged in January. We have Care Castle, which, for my money, is a nicer castle than Blarney Castle. It's in better shape. It's a great location. It's right on the motorway. There's no reason it can't be utilised and absolutely exploited for far greater tourism.
But Care Castle is doing extremely well. It has a huge footfall, is it not? I mean,
in a season.
Yeah.
But Blarney Castle has a 12-month season.
Ah, right, okay.
Not a 4-month season. And it takes in people from everywhere. People who are local to the area, people who are Irish tourists, as well as the international tourists. We could be cherry picking anywhere in Ireland and saying, yeah, we'll have a bit of that, we'll have a bit of this. But before we do anything with the tourism, there's a certain social aspect that we need serious investment and serious change to have happen. Clonmel has 23 empty units on the main street. Clonmel has a rather severe epidemic of drug use. That's reflected in other towns around Tipperary as well. And until you get rid of those particular problems, you're never going to attract tourism into the area. You're never going to be able to expand tourism in the area. I had one person say to me that they went to New Ross, and New Ross, smaller town, but a seaside town, and they thought the place was beautiful. It felt safe. How many times have you heard locally that Clonmel doesn't feel like a safe town? How can you expect people to bring tourism to your town when it doesn't look the part and doesn't feel the part? Killarney has nothing that Clonmel doesn't have, bar 1,000 B&Bs and hotels.
But it has some amazing business people down there who are, loads of vision.
And that's
your hometown, Kinsale, for example.
Yeah,
we can learn so much from Kinsale.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Kinsale, and certainly in the early '80s, it was a pretty grim place.
Was it?
Yeah, in the early 80s, it was a pretty grim place in Kinsale. It was really Brian, the name would come to me, who at the time owned the Blue Haven, really got together with a couple of other people and put the Good Food Circle together as an idea.
Yeah.
That, okay, what do they have? They have all these restaurants, and they marketed that as a thing. I mean, the tourism really is the essence of what will keep small towns together. I think if you look at it, retail is effectively gone in the context of what we do now. It's all online. So going into town to do your shopping is probably a thing of the past. Ultimately, it will be. But tourism and experience, everybody's talking about these having experiences, and one thing I think that Kinsale did very well is they essentially banned the big buses tours. So, you know, the over 30-seater buses or the 25-seater buses, they were banned. What they focused on was the 16 to 20-seater bus sizes. And the reason for that is that generally speaking, they're not on these packages. So if you look at, I think what's at Cashel is 400,000 people visit Cashel, but there's not 400,000
going downtown,
staying the night. And Kinsale focused on the small, and I think that's where the money ultimately is in that grouping, because, you know, if we have the rivers, some of the best river fishing in the world apparently, and I don't know about fishing, but we have a mountain and trails and lakes and areas up around. This is just Clonmel in the south. The problem I have, and the problem I see, and I was on the SPCs in my capacity as president of the chamber, was that we want to be part of everything. We see, say, the ancient East, and then we have the Wild Atlantic Way, and we wanted to be part of both of these things without sort of creating a unique product for what is, say, Clonmel, Care, say, South Tipperary, because I think South Tipperary and North Tipperary are two completely different groupings, because North Tipperary are closer to the lakes and you have that sort of thing. South Tipperary, we have the mountains, the rivers, and we have more history in relation to, say, castles, things. So we need to create a product. Because what that does is, if you have people coming into town, they want something to do in the evening, so they might go and they'll buy a gift from a shop. So that creates easier to have these smaller 1,000 square foot shops or bars at night, and creates a nightlife. And if there are people around, well, then if there's people around, then you can see that the drugs would be less because there's people around at night. But I totally agree with Carl. The drugs problem in Clonmel, I mean, I hate to talk down the town, because I think you start talking about it, focus on it, it's something. And I hate to say something needs to be done. It's kind of like, but I don't.
No,
but I think
and it's blatant. Isn't it? It's in your face.
It's incredibly blatant.
Yeah. Alison, one of the points that Jim made was, and it's an interesting one to contemplate. If the GAA's birthplace was in Killarney, or anywhere around Kerry or Cork or whatever, it would be made much more use of. Is that fair comment?
Definitely. You know, I think, you know, I suppose if you go back to years ago with the Cashel Palace, when there was a vision for the town then, and the manager then went to the K Club, you know, that vision, if that had been actually, you know, put to you know, together, Cashel would be a very different town now. You know, we really need to hone in on what we have. Like, the Rock of Cashel is sublime. And, you know, we're not really capitalising on that.
Yes.
Just like they're not capitalising on the birth of the GAA in Thurles. You know, we've so many buses coming in, but it's just a drop into the Rock.
But since I was a child, Alison, I've been hearing that. And why can't we do something about that? Why?
I don't think that there's the real, say, desire, in a sense, because we have a 42-bedroom hotel with the Cashel Palace.
Yes.
I think Bailey's has 9 bedrooms. The cost is out of a lot of people's range. We've been talking about a mid-range hotel in Cashel for a long, long time.
So it's accommodation is the big
accommodation. I think is massive, because
and Thurles will be the same. I mean, there's lovely hotels, but they need more budget.
And but strategically, even to look at Cashel for a moment.
Yeah.
Cashel is literally just off the motorway.
Yeah.
You know, say Thurles and Clonmel, you have to drive maybe 15 minutes, you know, off the motorway. You're located pretty much nearly halfway between Dublin and Cork. It should be a no-brainer that it's a stopover to stay the night. You know, we've always had good restaurants in Cashel. The The pub scene seems to be dying away.
Well, that's everywhere. That's not
it is,
Cashel.
for sure. But why is that? You know, there should be maybe some sort of incentivification there, or incentivization, I should say. But
I think just the culture is changing. I mean,
the culture is changing to a degree, but I think there's a huge amount of antisocial behaviour linked to drugs. Like
you can't get a taxi.
You can't get a taxi.
Yeah.
But like I was talking to somebody yesterday who plays cards on a Tuesday night in one of the pubs. They only live in Dominic Street. They now have to drive down. They used to walk down so they could have a pint and walk home. We're talking a couple of 100 metres. They now drive up and down because of the intimidation that they have faced walking home late at night. This is somebody elderly too. It's not like, you know, say a young lad in their 20s. And you know that's we're
Isn't
talking
that dreadful?
We're talking a Tuesday night. So, you know, you wouldn't imagine there'd be too many around.
And is that down to policing?
I think it is. And that was it came into my head while, say, you were talking a couple of minutes ago in relation to Clonmel. Tipperary got one more police officer, a guard. Say, what about all the people that are retiring?
Out of the allocation,
and out for different reasons? Like, we need to, the force needs to be strengthened, and there's.
No, they'll tell you they're attempting to do that, but it's not fast enough.
It's not fast enough, and the thing is, the same people are being caught for the same crimes, and there's nothing happening about it either. So
there's one thing I would just quote. I would think in the focusing Cashel on being a stop-off location, I think is the wrong thing. Or stop on the night, because what that does is it brings the big bus tours in. They're generally packaged. They stay the night. They do stay in the hotel. I think you need to focus.
So they don't have a big spend.
They don't have a big spend. I think what you want to do is focus on it actually being a destination itself. So it's actually not just we're stopping off on the motorway on the way to Killarney. We're going to say no. Cashel is an ideal place to have your holiday.
It could be, but that's not, say, how I was meaning to imply it if it came across that way. I meant that, say, anybody could come in and they'd have somewhere to stay. Not necessarily that there'd be bus tours. That we take bus tours, obviously, as well. But that, you know, it could be a destination, because look at, say, the kayaking now from, you know, down the shore. There's lots of activities that it could be. And in fairness to the Cashel Palace, they, you know, bring people out to Cross Oak, horse riding, they do the kayaking, there's fishing down, I think, around.
But that's
Carlow.
a very unique grouping of people that I think is the problem.
But that should be able to, the tentacles should be able to be broadened.
But
on
I think
that,
we should create
replicated.
I think like Cashel, like if you think about it, Cashel, Care and Clonmel as a little grouping around there, as a destination for someone to come for their 1 week's holiday.
And that used to be the case, and you could link Thurles into that.
Oh, and Thurles, yes, of course.
In order to do any of that, you have to have vision.
Completely.
Yes,
and vision is something that we're sorely lacking.
Well, that's in my notes. And you know this notion that they have of a housing czar. Do we need a czar?
We need a planning czar. Because
do we need any more? Like
czars,
well, to be honest, we've so many advisors.
We shouldn't have North and South Tipperary. That's what I think.
I agree with you. I think we should have it to say there should be North and South.
We have the advisors, but they're faceless, Alison. Whereas if I knew that Alison de Vere Hunt was the person whose responsibility it was to have a vision for tourism, then I know who to go to. Do you know what I mean?
I do, but the thing is, Fran, I think we need to kind of slightly move away from that kind of thing too, because when you looked at it, say, 20 years ago, and we'd none of these advisors and none of this nonsense and extreme wastage of money, we had more going on. People were coming together, business owners. Like, look at the business owners in relation to the St. Patrick's Day parade in Cashel. In fairness, they came out and they spoke. Now, they didn't get their way, and I think it's really disappointing, because St. Patrick's Day should be on St. Patrick's Day. And I think it would have given, people would be out on a Saturday anyway.
But is that not an example of a community sort of, you know, divided over what the best thing to do is?
But sure, the best thing to do would be St. Patrick's Day, the most practical thing to do.
I don't think the support, I don't think the real innovative support is there within the council, isn't in the executive council, who have the money to be able to do stuff, but actually thinking outside the box, or, you know, focusing on that, or listening directly to the people on the ground is alien to
Just very last word, Carl, I must go.
The people who got us to the place we're at can't be the people tasked with getting us from there to where we need to be.
There I must leave it. Thanks to Alison, to Mark, and to Carl. And sadly, they didn't sort of eat the heads off each other, but you can but hope. That's it for me. Leanne produced. Stevenson's on the way with the time tunnel. I'll talk to you on Monday. Look after yourselves. Bye-bye.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.